I'd like to begin the episode here by thanking some folks like Mark Sandifer, Tom Lucero, and Andog. These are all people who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kicked us some money. We really appreciate it. You can be like them and get a whole bunch of extra content by doing what I just said, going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you to everybody who has done it, and thank you if you're considering it.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are beginning our discussion of Dragon Quest IV, Chapters of the Chosen, which is a console RPG developed by Chunsoft and published by Enix for the NES in 1990 in Japan and 1992 in America.
Yeah. But before we get into it, we got admin, baby.
We do.
It's time for admin. I have a quick admin before your admin. Let me sneak in a little bonus admin. A bunch of people, apparently Patreon is having an issue.
Yes.
It was suggested that we put this on a free episode, so I'm just quickly mentioning it. If you are a patron, check your pledge. If you get a chance, make sure it went through. I did a Patreon announcement about this as well, but apparently Patreon's having some back-end stuff.
Yeah, they changed the billing address for where payments are processed to Ireland for notorious tax reasons.
Yes.
Ireland is a tax shelter. Yeah. And that it tripped every single fraud alarm imaginable.
Yes.
So
we're not frauding you. And even Patreon's not frauding you.
Nope.
So just let your bank know we're all cool.
Patreon's frauding the government.
Yeah. And we all know that's sick. So like, let that we're all going to be cool about that. Nobody narc, but just call your bank and tell them it's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a admin first.
Okay. Admin second. We are changing the lineup as it's coming up for reasons that are not great.
Yes,
we're doing a little bit. Well, you know, it's not public shaming, but it's not in the neighborhood of public shaming.
Yeah. So people, longtime listeners of the show, know that I am colorblind. I'm what's known as a strong. I have maxed out the meter on Protan, that version of colorblindness. And what I sat down and found out recently is that I cannot read Cruelty Squad. It is an aesthetically aggressive game that is meant to be a little hard to read, but I cannot see it. There are certain text and certain backgrounds that happen with some frequency, even in the beginning of the game, that I just can't read. Like I could possibly take a screenshot and blow it up to 1,000 times or something, but I'm not playing this on a tiny screen or anything. I'm playing it on my PC, of course.
Yeah.
There's a limit to how much accommodation I should be expected to make. And I hit it. I spent a lot of time last night adjusting Windows color filters, adjusting gamma in-game and out of game, trawling message boards, looking for solutions for this, and could not find one. It is a game with inconsistent coloring. So even getting where sometimes a window would work, and I'd be like, oh, thank goodness I did it. And then I would get a little bit further in the level and there'd be a pop-up and I couldn't read it. A character would talk to me. So I get that as an artistic choice. I respect how aesthetically aggressive that game is. It is at least a degree on me for not screening it better, but I can't read it. And until a version of it comes out that I can read, it is a game that the text seems important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cannot play it. I don't want, the developer, I'd love them to fix it. I sent them a message, hey, this would be great.
Yeah.
If you could fix this, I'm interested in your game.
Yeah.
But I just, I can't read it. I can't see it.
Yeah, it is a physical reality about
Yes.
a body, unchangeable.
I'm not choosing it.
Yes.
And they do sell like $300 color correction glasses that I have not tried, but also come the fuck on. Like that should be my responsibility to order a new prescription, to play your video game. So it's pretty frustrating. I try not to, I always feel a little like I'm stealing valor or something if I talk about disability like that, but that is what it is. It's just one that doesn't impact my life that much.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that was frustrating me about it is like, it's like 7 to 8% of people.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this a great deal in the in the witness episode.
Yeah.
When we covered that, like it's not negligible.
It's not. Yeah, we're not rare. Like it comes up, and it's not. There are different degrees of severity, and there's different amounts. It almost entirely affects men. So it's not like there are extenuating factors to how proportional it is, but it is a significant part of the population that you don't want to just be implicitly saying fuck you to when you're designing. So I'm pretty disappointed. It's possible dude just didn't consider it.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that implementing that would be harder than I think. I'm not a dev. Regardless of which, the reality is I can't see it. So we have to put it from the schedule.
It is disappointing insofar as it is a disappointment that we cannot play this game that we wanted to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed that dude did not fix it, but I don't know why. There might be circumstances to that. Small developer, single guy. I get it. Mm-hmm. But also I wanted to play it. It's my shit.
Looks good.
Looks good.
Looks good in the in the ways that it looks bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. It's completely in my shit. Like, and it just, it sucks. Yeah. So we're subbing it out. We're subbing it out with something that is thematically more appropriate.
Thematically, I mean, not more appropriate, thematically similar.
Appropriate to this game with pairing with this one, like one that is in conversation with the month.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, I wasn't sure which themes you were talking about. Yeah, so the premium episode for this month, coming out after the second Dragon Quest II episode, is going to be about Lisa, the Painful RPG. That is a game that I like a lot. It is mechanically interesting and intricate in a way that classic console RPGs are not. And also it has really upsetting story and aesthetics, but also interesting, and it is a funny game too in a very dark kind of way. So yeah, we're doing that one as the premium.
So make an interesting contrast with this.
Yes.
With Dragon Quest IV.
Go from wholesome to about as unwholesome as you can get in the genre.
Wholesome and just a deconstruction of the genre versus the straightest putt that's imaginable.
Yeah.
For the genre.
Yeah.
So that's our programming. Apologies to anybody who is looking forward to Cruelty Squad, and congratulations to anybody who's looking forward to Lisa the Painful.
Mm-hmm. We know you're out there.
It's been requested before. It's always been on the list. I just always, in my mind, I conceptualized it as the summer RPG slot.
Yes.
Game. And there was kind of a 2-for-1 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's one more programming thing. Sorry, we're doing so much on this. We did switch Castlevania Aria of Sorrow and Pokemon. In the order for next month, because Pokemon the trading card game ended up being longer than we thought it would be.
The current arc of How Long to Beat Betraying Us nonstop continues. I played that to get a break from this game, and my play clock was a lot longer than intended. So just for better flow on our end.
Mm-hmm.
So in this game, in Dragon Quest IV, you play as a large party of adventurers, not all at once. until the end, as you gather the help of the chosen, gather to help the chosen one, rather, defeat a great evil that threatens the land. It is a fantasy RPG in that respect.
It is, this makes a good pairing with Bard's Tale as well. And so far as, we are getting it's like, oh yeah, this seems pretty basic. There's a reason it's basic. It's because it's foundational, you dummy.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah.
Even though it is the fourth in the series.
True.
So there are some, it is not quite as basic as Dragon Quest 1.
This is the first NES RPG we have done.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Had to just Rolodex through all of the 400 episodes that we've done. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what else we would have done for NES RPGs. It's not a very rich vein, in a general sense. Like a lot of those games have not aged super well.
Yeah.
Even though they're,
Yeah. Also, it's before I started playing JRPG, or before I started playing RPGs. Yeah. So, there's only one other one I would be interested in bringing, which is Sweet Home. But that's not going to be for a while. But
yeah. So for clarity, this is an NES game, but we played remakes of it. I started on the phone version, the iPhone version of it, which has party chat, which we'll talk about, that feature getting removed. Would have liked to have had that, but I couldn't hack it. So I switched to the DS version, which is what we both played.
Yes. They're similar. They feature the same translation. We're going to be using those names that are pulled from there. And also might be taking some mechanics for granted that are not present in the original version. So understand it.
Mechanics.
Yes.
Yeah. And I played the original version back in the day, which is why this was my pitch for Summer RPG, because I had played the original and I liked it. So I have some memories of that stuff. This is our first Dragon Quest game. So there are a lot of basics to get out of the way here.
Yeah. And emphasis on basics, right? Like
the basics.
Dragon Quest is, I don't know how controversial this is going to be, but it's kind of easy mode, to a degree. It was always meant to be kind of a distillation of these kind of catchy and hooky parts of PC RPGs.
Specifically of blobbers. So PC RPGs of the time. So Ultimas and Wizardry.
Right.
So when you hear PC RPG, it's very specifically taking things from 80s PC RPGs.
Right. This is not attempting to distill Baldur's Gate or something like that.
Or even Goldbox, or even Wasteland or even Starflight. It's going before that.
Yeah. But it was to take those kind of elements from blobbers, which were very popular over in Japan. So your Black Blades and whatnot, or Onyx Blade, I forget, and kind of make them accessible to more players by putting them on a console and by, just kind of making it flow better.
Yeah. Largely translating it to a controller.
Yes.
Not having an array of shortcuts there. This is very basic mechanically here in Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest specifically is very basic mechanically.
Yes.
This is true of these other NES console RPGs as well. Final Fantasy 1 is very basic mechanically. It is there. You have a party as opposed to you have classes, but it's still very basic mechanically. Yeah. There's shades of basic. So it's worth, when you say basic, it's hard to emphasize exactly because there's a curve. For it. I would be hesitant to say that this is really basic, whereas something like Final Fantasy 3 is not basic. Final Fantasy 3 has a job system, and the rest of it is all exceedingly basic.
Yeah.
There's one element, and the preceding game to this had a job system, but the rest of it exceeding basic.
Yeah.
There's one innovation per game,
right,
in this console generation of the genre. You get one.
So kind of just a evolution by steps, as opposed to kind of doing it like a radical reinvention, each time, which is not to say that the games do not play, differently from each other. Each of those steps is pretty important, actually.
There,
see going from one person in DQ1 to having a party in Dragon Quest 2. That's it's one step, but it's a pretty substantial one.
That's probably the biggest step.
Yeah.
That is made in this this era of the genre, I would say. Yeah. So a lot of these things are super basic console RPG things. But we haven't really, we covered those. We covered Earthbound. We covered a bunch of Final Fantasies. But this is the trailblazer of that.
Yes.
So you navigate the world and towns from a top-down perspective. You talk to people. You do a very simple quest. You get items and equipment. You heal yourself. You heal yourself with items, spells, or you can stay at the inn. You save and you resurrect and get rid of curses and such at churches. A little Dragon Quest specific thing.
Yeah. It just the weirdly just like Christian religious that this is.
Yes. Yeah. It's a real anomaly in the genre.
Yeah. It's not
like religion is good and it's Christian.
Yeah, there's a religion. It is explicitly Christian, and you are not trying to kill the god.
Yeah, you don't kill any of it.
Yeah. At least as far as I know. In any of these, it is not you don't it doesn't turn into Shin Megami Tensei after Dragon Warrior 7 or whatever. Yep. So the battles are turn-based, and they're shown from a first-person perspective. You don't see your folks at all. And all actions in a round are dialed in at once, then executed from there based on the agility stats. So there's no active time battle here. But it is, setting a, basically like an initiative priority.
Yes. Just the standard before active time battle.
Yes.
The stats are super basic that you have. And the game does not have an elemental weakness system. That would be part of Final Fantasy or part of later Dragon Quests. Spells just do damage or do a debuff.
Yeah.
There. There's several things that came up while playing this that are things that are part of the genre that are issues to the experience of playing this, but it's not this game's fault. So you end up with things like that where the battles are turn-based and there are thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, all the way down. You will fight and fight and fight and fight until you cannot fight no more. We're firmly in that zone. There is no mitigation of random encounters. There's no mitigation of anything.
There is, if you have Talon in your party, you can have him cast Padfoot.
Well, and you can. There's the item that you can use. They make it a consumable. There are kind of ways to elide it, but then it runs into the second part of that bargain, which is always talked about this the Chrono Trigger thing.
Being ready,
yeah, you have to have a certain level. So letting you skip encounters doesn't count if you have to do them to beat the boss.
Yeah, just kind of shifts them. Time
you
shifts
can do them later
them.
if you want. That's not that meaningful, I don't think, as a choice. And then the other bit with spells that I find, that there's room for advancement in, is that you do damage. If you want to do status effects, that is meaningful. But they tend not to work on bosses, and it's almost never worth doing on a non-boss because you just want to kill them.
They're going to die so quickly. It's not like you're, it's not like there is an especially meaningful combat mix-up where there's a big guy who's going to take a while to kill and you want to hold him at bay while you take out the ads, right? That is a level of tactics that is not present in this era of RPGs. It's just kind of not.
Yeah, they just kind of didn't figure it out. And so that is ends up making your verb set feel extremely limited.
Yeah.
What you can do in this game is very limited. You don't have a lot of choices in battle. It might look like you do because you have a lot of spells, but honestly, most of them are not worth using most of the time.
Yeah. And you eventually are able to design your party, but it's filling roles, right?
Yes.
And you've got two basically identical options for those roles. You can basically it's all adding up to the same number, just using different different constituent parts.
Two damage guys, a heal guy, and a spell guy. However you like it.
Yes. People will probably get frustrated that we're comparing stuff to Final Fantasy. It's just because do a search on our webpage. We just talked about so many of those. That is our basis. They're Sega kids, they're Nintendo kids.
Final Fantasy, I was both of kids when I was younger. I played all the NES Dragon Quests. you know,
Yes.
which I wish I still had them because they're worth tons of money now.
Mhm.
And these are the twin pillars of console RPGs in
Yes.
America. Like, there's no arguing with that. Like, people can be
Mhm.
frustrated that we're comparing them, but they were the genre for a long time.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and even now they're some of the biggest names, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you go to like E3 or whatever, like Final Fantasy VII will continue to be iterated on and re-released forever.
Mhm.
It is the marquee name
Yes.
in the genre.
Yeah.
Even
It's
as they move on from the genre, like even as
Mhm.
modern games are not really the same genre, it
Right.
is the name associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I
Yeah.
feel like comparisons to, but those things that I just said were also true of Wizardry and Might and Magic.
Yes.
You know, if somebody wants to be pedantic about it, like not
Mhm.
you, I mean, if some like this phantom person we're imagining, that's
Yeah.
also a problem with Wizardry.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just I bring up that frustration because I'm noticing in the notes that I wrote out, it's like, okay, so this is different from Final Fantasy, just because that's the basis of my experience. I've not played a
Yeah.
bunch of the Dragon Quest that I spent the most time with was 7, right?
Yeah, and we didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, man. 7, not even 8.
It's okay.
It's 6 hours before you get into a fight.
I know there's problems.
Yeah.
You also have to remember, I was 13.
Yeah, I know. There is a you can never go home again element to my reaction to this, and I don't want to go home. It sucked. I moved away. But yeah, man, eight's much better than 7.
I understand. I
I
moved on. I wasn't playing a lot of console RPGs at that time.
No.
You know, 2005 wasn't the time for that for me.
Yeah. No,
Or for
I
anybody
gotcha.
really. Yeah.
It's there weren't a lot of other NES RPGs that came over either that
Yeah.
weren't Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy.
Mhm.
So it's like having those to compare. Like, we weren't importing games when we were.
Yeah.
You know, you weren't importing games when you were 3.
No.
You know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So all of this is a lead up to say, like, something that that I thought was neat. And again, talking about bringing this over from Blobbers, we ran into this when we covered the Bard's Tale, as enemy groups. So,
Yes.
like you can fight a bunch of enemies. They're all going to be represented on screen. But sometimes, if there are enough of them that are alike, they will be presented as a group, which means that you cannot like target a specific individual inside of it. It's just like, okay, I'm going to attack this group of bugs, and it's going to damage a random one inside. And that is one way in which spells can differ. There will be like a fire attack that goes for one person, and then there's the group fire attack.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a cleave.
Yeah.
Kind of attack for it. In general, I personally don't feel like this adds a whole lot. Like, it's a little bit unusual that there are groups, but I think it would probably be better if I could individually target them within the group. I don't know why melee attacks can't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that adds a specific thing to it.
I bring it up because like it's
It's
a
different.
pebble is a pebble, but a pebble's still a stone. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, it is a difference. It's just I don't feel like it's a particularly additive difference.
Right.
Like, in terms of making this hang together.
Right.
So that is one of the big differences with this. The Dragon Quest 1, which was the first console RPG, JRPG as we understand it, you had a single adventurer, which always created a problem. You would get stuck in these. I played the shit out of that game as a kid. You constantly got stuck in these death spirals where you got hit and then used your turn to heal for basically all you had been hit for.
Yeah. And the
Then
enemy was faster than you, so they would hit you. Yeah.
Yes. And then you would use your turn to do that, and you would just get stuck in these spirals.
Yeah.
It did not work. In Dragon Quest 2, the innovative thing they did was add party members.
Yeah. But they also made it balls hard.
They made it super hard. There's a lot. It's all, and when we say balls hard too, like, we'll talk about the progression of this. It's balls grindy. It's balls takes more time.
Yes.
You know? Number 3 added this very rudimentary job system. When I was thinking about 4, I was getting these two confused a little bit. They both do structural things that are kind of interesting. I was thinking of the job system, but it is not. This does not have a job system.
The twist in 3 is real cool. But
yeah, there's a couple plot things that are cooler. I find this game very mid. Get this out there on Front Street, like exceedingly mid. There's a couple of things I think are interesting about it, but I did not have very much fun playing it.
Yes.
It was a real slog.
So Dragon Quest IV, so going from 3 where you have that job system, Dragon Quest IV, you have a party that is made up of characters that are defined. They have pasts, they have professions, and with that comes fixed stat and ability growth. You do not customize them as you level them up. And again, another Final Fantasy comparison, like Final Fantasy IV, each character is an expression of a character class from the job system of the game that preceded it.
Which without it's like when you choose, like choosing a class in Final Fantasy 1 or Wizardry, just without there being a choice before that. So it's like, instead of you making your party and choosing a ninja, you just get a character who is like you don't get a character like a ninja, but just throwing that out of nowhere, or as using as an example, like a character that is like a priest. There. This plays into the big selling point for this game, the neat thing it does structurally, which is you don't play as the main character outside of a very brief prologue, which is a hilarious prologue. Not, it's in terms of low stakes. Like, I don't know why it's there. It's not in the NES version.
Nope.
Until chapter 5. Instead, you are playing 4 chapters from the perspectives of the supporting characters and their associated crew. To kind of learn how they play and what their part of the world is, and foreshadow the grand plot.
Right.
I'm going to, when like I said, I don't love this game. When it does something neat, I'm going to call it out. I want to give it credit where it's due. I think this is cool.
Yes.
I would love to see this structure explored. Octopath does a little bit of this, but that game is really boring. Like, that has other problems, plot wise. I would love to see this explored in a better game. For lack of a better word.
Apparently, Octopath 2 slaps, is my understanding, based on opinions that I trust on that. And all, like, it was explored before that too. Like, you Live Alive, right?
Well, Live Alive isn't about them all coming together, right? Isn't Live Alive?
No, they come together at the end.
Yeah. I couldn't remember if it was just chapters or what.
Yep.
But yeah, there are games that do this structure that are presumably better. Than this,
but it's still cool, and to have. It's, I mean, it is a novel narrative structure that is not just hero's journey, right? And each of these 4 chapters at the start, is mechanically different, and they're also like commentary on the previous games, right? Like, the first chapter is explicitly like, hey, here's what Dragon Quest 1 was a little bit like. You're playing as one guy. The second one is here's a party where the function, these different functions are broken out, and like they do have stories. You are like following mysteries, and they end on cool cliffhangers,
and they all lead up to the end. This ends up having a thing that and I know you and I are on different pages on this. I'm not trying to convince anybody, but it ends up having a feeling similar to me in structure to Chrono Trigger, where the back half of it, I just felt like the things had been solved. Like, the beginning of this, when I'm being introduced to these mysteries, is really cool, and then the back half turns into a scavenger hunt that I don't think is that interesting. Like, it keeps selling past the close a little bit. It's kind of got that, like, I've always wanted Chrono Trigger to end after the Magus fight.
Yes.
But the so this is a really neat structural thing, to have all these things come together, go back and revisit areas, have these characters cross over, appear in each other's chapters, stuff like that. That's neat.
So things change in chapter 5 when everybody comes together, and there are some big new mechanical features that are added, and this is one of the main ways that the NES version is wildly different from the later ports. So the 2 features are AI battling and your caravan, your wagon. That comes along, the AI being the bigger of the 2. It is wild to me. I did not know this fact about Dragon Quest IV. This would have been a deal breaker for me, going and playing it.
Yeah, it should have been a deal breaker for anybody. It sucks. It should have been a deal breaker for me, and it didn't. In the NES version, you only had direct control of your hero. You gave kind of orders to everyone else, that AI routines. That kind of streamlining, I can see the appeal of it, but not when you just have to watch everything take place. Like, it's a weird thing where, like, I say conserve MP or I say, go all out or whatever. I can't remember the exact terms for, I played them when I was a kid, but what they were called, and then just like, oh, cool. Like I'm automating a thing, but all I'm automating is the choice between two viable moves really in these things. And then I'm watching the character go up and then do the wrong one every once in a while. Or I'm automating the choice between like 2 viable moves and 3 unviable ones.
Right.
And then just have to wait a while to see if the character does the good one. It doesn't add anything. It's a really misguided feature, and I'm really glad they ported it out in the remake. Again, there's you can squint and be like, that's neat because it'd never been done before. There's a weird thing that comes up in some of these games where there's experimentation without what seems like, and I don't know if this is true of the development, but it seems like experimentation without playtesting. Like that felt like a rapid prototyping idea that was not put in the hands of people to be like, hey, is this better or worse than if you control the party?
Is this satisfying? There's an interview, this is a point from later, but like they talk about their misgivings with the way the system turned out, kind of in the same breath that they're talking about how impressed they are with like the fundamentals of the system. Like the intention was for your hero to act almost like a general,
like a tactician.
Right? Yeah. And, to be like, okay, like, I'm not micromanaging all of these people. The hero is so impressive that each of these people who I've established, they're going and doing this. The problem is that concept is thrown up against like, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of Dragon Quest combat.
Yes. Yeah. It is too simple for that to be interesting. It's also a thing where it is not typically taking control away from a player like that. Like is not the way to make it, more interesting if the idea is to make it more tactical, right? Like the AI wasn't there. It's impressive for the time. But it's not like a very robust AI. We're not looking at the similar system with Final Fantasy 12. We're not looking like eventually that kind of thing will work. But that to make that work, that's an action game. It doesn't work in a turn-based melee. Like even a little.
They talk about some vagaries underneath it, like characters will, learn the max HP of enemies that they fight, and then kind of optimize their MP use against them and stuff. I can't imagine that being super transparent. This feels a little bit like creatures. They walk left and they walk right. These are not like this is not simulated. It's the not snowmen, but men made of snow.
It's a very similar to men made of snow. Very much so.
Yeah.
And even if they do learn those things, again, you run into the problem of like the basic jobber battles of these games. An algorithm can play them already. I am acting as my big issue, with a lot of console RPGs is that I am essentially just being an algorithm for almost all of my playtime. The most meaningful decision I make is, my HP is getting low. I need to heal. That's not a particularly interesting decision. And it's the only one I make for most of the game. Taking even that away from me or simulating that is not too impressive to me. Even though I couldn't do it, I'm not a coder. And maybe at the time it was new, but it didn't end up having a result that makes for good game design, I don't think.
And I don't, I wasn't there at the time. And by the time this came around, they were, they decided like, hey, we've kind of figured out what, we figured out how to translate PC RPG stuff over to this, right? Like we've got this where we want to make something new with Dragon Quest 4. But like, even RPG players at the time, up to and including the people who went crazy for Dragon Quest because it was more accessible, I do not see taking the decisions away being appealing beyond the gee whiz factor, right? Like, oh, they attacked, and maybe that's not what I would have done, but they attacked. Well, maybe
look at them go. The little guy's growing up.
That engine doesn't have a lot of gas in it, I guess, compared to like buckling down and commanding a whole party, turn by turn. Even with the kind of the light lift that the mechanics are here,
it's always a fantasy doing that, right? Like you are bringing a lot of yourself to that because the games are not rigorous enough to demand anything from you in that, but even getting rid of the fantasy. You know, I imagine it being good for people who like playing these, like the autopilot aspect of it is a big appeal. Like they just want to zone out. And if you put your characters on watch my back mode and you can just trust them to watch your back, you can zone out even more.
Yeah.
You know, similar to me running out of YouTubes when we did a Bard's Tale. You know, I know how much TV I watched while playing this game. And that is in fast forward, in, you know, on an emulator. Like it is, I was on autopilot to a degree that I have very rarely been. I wish I would have been high. Like I should have gotten so fucking high to make it through this game. Instead, I took breaks to play the entirety of the Pokemon trading card game.
Yeah. Do you want to know the heartbreak of this, Gary?
What is that?
The Mac, so OpenEMU, the emulator suite that I use. That's Mac. It's a really good program. The DS core does not allow fast forwarding.
Oh,
yeah.
I had that shit mapped to my R trigger. It was incredible. I didn't even have to toggle it. I could just be like, okay, go. And then just slow down for reading parts or slow down for boss battles. And then the rest of it just be like, go. Yeah. It was incredible.
Well, I mean, as this isn't just us like talking about like doing this for a job and trying to beat it under deadline or whatever. There's always that accusation. Nothing to do with that. But like, go to last year when we talked about Final Fantasy 12, right? Like, it was a blessing that we played it doing the Zodiac version, doing the Zodiac age, not just for being able to run it on at the Switch, right?
Yes.
Like that's cool, and the upgraded graphics are cool. But like even that game with its relatively faster pace and being kind of actiony, real time, blah blah blah. Like you
still went through dungeons where you could beat everything.
Well, you still need to fast forward stuff, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's still there were large portions where it was playing itself. I needed to get through those mines. Yeah. I just walked my guys through the mines and fast forward while they followed their gambits.
Vaughn and Pinello yearn for the mines.
Yes, they love the mines. They yearn them. So it is a thing that is with this this genre and this entry in it. Like we will do other games that are console RPGs. We're doing one essentially by genre next episode. I don't want to do anything this basic ever again. I'm done with these for my life. If a game has you just basically do an algorithm in your head, and you other than that though, you're just playing for the story and you're just chewing through thousands of battles to get to the next story point, I'm out. I'm out of things to say about it. I'm out of care. I can't just put on a YouTube and do it.
Yep.
So even regardless of the show. So the reason why I say that is because it's not because I'm rushing for the show. It just, I would have quit these a long time ago without the show. And it's just, I don't have anything to say.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say about them. Like you spend so much time just tappa. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah. So it's it gets me.
And if people want that kind of content from us, I don't know, like I can stream, like I've got like a Wild Arms in me, at some point. Yeah.
If I'm this bored with like this stuff and I feel like I'm out of things to talk about, I can't imagine anybody's getting anything out of me talking about it at this point, So even from just an audience perspective, like I got nothing else to say, I fully support getting that content from elsewhere. And why I suggest, twitch.tv/Duckfeed to watch Cole doing it. Like if you're going to get it from the best in the biz, get it from Cole, because like I think about Wild Arms and there are neat things about Wild Arms. Like the generalities portion of Wild Arms would be fun to talk about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the story part would be fine. But then there's just so much algorithmic.
Yeah.
Like there's so much me being an AI that plays the game.
Yeah.
And it just, it's too hard for me to get through. The Bard's Tale was really the big thing that like really hit that for me. And that's, the reason why you've noticed that we've been using the phrase console RPG instead of JRPG, because that's a PC role-playing game, but it's got the same issues. It's not really about the country. It's a genre thing. Yeah. And this genre is just, it's not for me. So.
Yeah. And that just it's just gonna be
more
okay
for you. Yeah. More who ate all the pussy? Just more for me. So the DS has a version of this AI thing we're talking about. You generally have direct control, but you can assign auto battle tactics through postures, show no mercy, watch my back, stuff like that. Can't imagine doing that.
Yeah.
There's
also
wagon,
there are like mercenaries you can hire in some of the chapters too.
Yes.
They operate, they do the random the random thing, which makes them, I mean, it's just an attack. You can't really plan around it. I don't know which of these enemies to it. I don't know which enemies to attack.
Where where they're at the pretzel wagon and they're walking up to the thing trying to decide what they want to get. It's exactly that. Like I'll have a pretzel. It's exactly that. There's no answer to this. The bounding box of possibility is a straight line. There's no third dimension to the bounding box. The wagon is a Dragon Quest staple. So similar to like, Chocobos first appearing in Final Fantasy II, the wagon appears here. The wagon shows up in later Dragon Quest as well.
Yeah.
This follows along behind your party, cannot go into dungeons, and this carries your inactive party members, allowing you to swap out. If the wagon's present, you can swap out at the beginning of any round.
Yes.
To bring new people in, which I think is cool. If you're going to have this big party, and people in the wagon do get a little of XP. I hate the punishing, like they don't get all the XP though. You still got to bring them out to grind a little bit, but they get a little XP. So it's not as bad as it could be.
It took Pokemon inventing a new kind of egg to solve that problem.
Yep. Yeah. Just to realize, like, saving you the time of bringing everybody out to train them.
So there's a day-night cycle that comes over from Dragon Quest 3. I think this is cool. Changes the monsters that show up on the field, and also, like, importantly, changes the towns. Right, there is there's a state change. There's some quests that can only be progressed at night because the person who does the thing only shows up when it's night out because they work during the day or whatever.
Yeah, says to me somewhere the characters have schedules, kind of.
Yeah, which, like, you gotta squint and you gotta put yourself back in time. And obviously this isn't new for this game because Dragon Quest 3 did it, but, like, I don't know, this illusion of a living world where, like, okay, there's a nightlife, like this theater is only open during this time. Like, it is conceptually pretty cool.
It's neat, especially for when this came out.
Yeah.
In terms of making the world feel cool, for sure. The towns in this are very small. They tend to be about whatever the problem is that you have to advance at this, like down to a real silly degree. This is the town of the night market or whatever. That you go to do things specifically for the night market, and nothing else. There, a big part of the game, if that big text thing we talked about, how many words are in this, is after you accomplish a thing, people will have different dialogue.
Right.
You go around, talk to them. They'll give you clues where to go next, or they'll just have new flavor dialogue.
Yeah. Which, in simpler times, I would have more patience for going around and tapping on everything and seeing what new text it shot out. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's worth talking about the writing here a little bit, just because that's where it comes from, or where it shows up. It's fine. Like Dragon Quest has a reputation. The writing in Dragon Quest, people like it because of how it's localized and how jokey it is.
Yes.
The jokes are real soft puns.
It's usually real. And it's more Americanized mystical ninja stuff.
It is without the perplexing. Without the absolutely, the references that you don't get.
Yes.
A good example. This is a joke that was cut from the DS version, but it was in the NES version. And just how every once in a while I've been remembering that for 35 years for some reason.
Yeah.
At the end of the first chapter, or the second chapter, I believe, when you hide in the palanquin to be sacrificed, it's called a litter, and the guy says, "Remember, don't litter in the litter." That's the joke.
Okay.
And they replaced it with nothing. They replaced it with not a joke. But I wasn't planning to litter. I'm getting sacrificed to a monster for this. I don't have things on me. I'm not going to litter. Why'd you say that? That's the kind of the joke we're operating at in this era of Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
So like in some ways, the translation is better than some things, and the writing is a little bit better. There's very little writing I think is really like good in this.
Yeah.
It's hard to hold it against it for when it came out, but the writing is not the appeal here.
Right.
Part of that, though, is that we don't get the party chat where it had a lot of the writing. It's in the iOS version and some versions of the game where you could stop and have your characters talk to each other. I can imagine this doing a lot for characterization.
Which kind of falls off a cliff after your introduction kind of deals.
Yeah. There's a little bit of characterization to the characters, but a lot of it is in their setup, and then there's just their design.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shorthand going on. There's not a lot of character development or anything that happens. And part of that is this feature that was cut for development time reasons in the DS version,
which is
a bummer. Like, you know, you want it, if the idea is you have this band of people who get together and have this camaraderie and you're going to go do this big quest, you want them to talk. That's a cool thing that can have happen.
Right.
And it's a real bummer to cut it out.
Yeah. And you know, our decision to play the DS version or whatever, that's, you know, it's an accessible version, etc. But it does lead to very funny things where I'm going on, like, to refresh myself about these characters, going on TV Tropes and going to the character page and seeing all this stuff, and it's like, where the fuck are you pulling this from?
Yeah, I didn't get to have that experience of this person at all.
No.
And some of it is from like later games and back matter stuff, and some of it is from party chat. Like, some of these characters went on to become popular characters in the franchise.
Kind of in a way that is exclusive to this game.
Yeah. Well, this is a very popular cast.
Yes.
You know, for this series, but it's a thing that I simply don't, I don't see it. You know, I don't get it. For this, there are ones that I think are all right. That's what I got.
Yep.
You know?
It's okay.
It's okay. It's okay. What they did for the DS version that's really interesting is that the story is not changed or anything, but they decided to give characters accents.
This is the punch out of accents.
It is real race. Everyone is Mamma Mia. I want the pizza pie. It is the punch out of accents. That is a good way to put it. It's very funny. And like, it makes me think of Dragon Quest with its these and thous, right? Like back in the day. I really liked that about Dragon Quest because it gave it a voice. You know, it's kind of obnoxious. It's a little dumb, but it was better than nothing. You know, it was a slightly non-straight putt.
Yeah.
I appreciate it here because, again, anything that can add some English to the ball is good.
Right.
You know, but it also does end up becoming
anything that can add some broken English to the ball.
Yeah. Just just, you know, I love that in the very first chapter, the king is just aye, the wee bairn. And I'm like, you're the fucking king. Like, why are you talking like a chimney sweep in a cartoon?
Is everybody here groundskeeper Willie?
It is the kingdom of the groundskeeper Willies.
Part of being,
groundskeepers Willie.
Part of being a conscientious person on the left, I think, is kind of keeping your powder dry on getting offended on behalf of other people. But it's like,
it's an advanced lesson. It's hard for a lot of people here to learn, but yeah.
But it's like, I'm looking at this, especially the stuff that happens in the dancer and fortune teller chapter. I was like, should the UN get involved?
Yeah, it's not. It's a little hard. But again, I still like it more than the alternative, which would have just been the king lives in the castle.
Yes,
kind of stuff. You know, I'd rather have that.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is like the thing that they added for this. The other thing is like, yeah, the story is pretty boilerplate. Like, you know, look at the previous 3 Dragon Quests where your characters were pretty much always at least a little bit anonymous. Like, giving these characters like a background is pretty important. See us talking about like the distinction of like, okay, if your character is a complete cipher versus if they're established like a Harry or Dubois or a Geralt of Rivia. I always mispronounce that. I apologize. But yeah, that is something that is additive here and brought over.
New for Dragon Quest, not new for the genre. That's Final Fantasy II's thing.
See, that's one of those things. Oh, well, I guess like, Final Fantasy II NES.
Yeah, the NES Final Fantasy II. By no means play it, but it does a couple neat things. Like,
they keep re-releasing it. You're gonna want to play it. Don't do it.
Yeah, you don't want to. It is a thing where like any number one of these, one of my frustrations with this genre is that any individual entry will have a cool thing that I think is neat. Yeah. You know, it's one thing among all the other things, and they so rarely make a meaningful change to the elephant in the room, which is hundreds of battles that don't matter. Most of your time not mattering, hundreds, sometimes thousands, and they don't matter. Like, they matter in aggregate. Eventually, you very slowly gain levels over the course of things, but you don't feel the levels. Like, you get a level up, it doesn't feel better.
Just a big smooth slope. Yeah,
it is the smoothest, most gentle slope that's ever been. It's like an obstacle course with every once in a while they add a new billboard, and the obstacle course is a sidewalk.
Yeah.
And every once in a while they're like, hey, this one has this cool billboard. Do you want to check that out while you're walking? And like, yeah, but it's like, well, it's at the end of the walk. It's several miles to get to that billboard. Do you want to see it? Well, can I read about the billboard? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the JPEG of the billboard right here.
Yeah. Check out the music you get to listen to while you're on the walk. Oh, cool. Can I listen to that without doing the walk? Yeah. It's right here. Oh, cool. While I'm doing it, I get to listen to an audiobook as well of like a fairly boilerplate story. Yeah. Can I learn about that without taking the walk? Yeah, of course. What do you talk? But you still want to take the walk, don't you? Do the walk.
I like these monsters. They're painted around here. Can
I buy a book of those though, so I can just kind of flip through them and take a look at the designs?
Sure. Yeah, or is there like a different obstacle course that's like kind of a little bit more complicated and more fun to go over like one town over that also features paintings of these? Yeah, though that's over in Dragon Quest Builders Land, my friend.
Yeah, that's over in Rocket Slime Land. That's over in Dragon Quest Joker. Yeah. That's what we have. A lot of different paths you could take, but this is if you want to go just on a straight line for miles and miles. That's this path. It's not even a bunny slope. It's not. There's no slope. It's just.
It's really funny too. Again, just to find it, having found an interview. Let me pull this. So I just got a lot of insight into the development of the game from contemporary interviews that were, I don't know about translated, but posted on this website called Shmuplations.
Okay,
is what it is.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know Shmuplations.
Yeah,
that's a great
I've seen it around. They've got tons of developer interviews or whatever. Yeah, a few of the things that I cited from this are kind of pulled from there, but related to this is a slope you walk up and there's a billboard or whatever. They talk about being really proud of the dungeon designs, right?
Yeah.
What they talk about in relation to that was we have novelty. It is not just the bricks. We have one that's a big tree.
I saw that
we've
too.
got all that. Yeah, and it's
you're talking about wallpaper.
Yeah, you're talking about wallpaper, and it's that is not negligible. Somebody had to figure out hey, dungeon theming matters, and we can work on bringing some diversity to it. But that you have to understand that you're still walking the same. The bones are still the same, right?
Yeah.
It's not something you can hang your hat on. It doesn't make it cooler. It's like when somebody spends all their time describing the story or the theme of something. It's like, cool. Well, what do you do?
Yeah, it feels like that very intensely to me. Yeah. In this, and the maze dungeons can be given character through a palette or through music, but not through what you're doing.
Necessary but not sufficient.
Yes, necessary but not sufficient. Por qué no los more?
Yeah.
Why not have objects in there? Why not make it feel like a place? There's just a lot of things you could do. The closest this game gets to that, weirdly enough, is a mine tunnel that has torches on the wall, the tunnel the guy digs out.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's as far as that goes. And it's maddening.
And to an extent, this is on us because, hey, we decided to go to the Best Buy and we're like, hey, where are your fucking rugs? We walked to the NES RPG store and we're talking about this being not having complexity present that would have even been there in SNES or even I guess SNES Lufia had dungeon puzzles and stuff that you solve.
Yeah,
right?
There's a little bit it is the genre of very slow degrees. There's a little bit more. They're still mazes, but they just have puzzles every once in a while. It is on us, but I think that calling forward matters a little bit, right? So this was something I pitched and I was kicking myself for it because it's shit, man, I picked something very basic. I wanted to do an NES era of this genre because we hadn't done it, and I remembered liking the game, and this is one of the big tentpole franchises, so I was like, we should do this. WoF owes this. you know?
Yeah.
And part of me is like, yeah, this is very basic, but a lot of the things, not everything, a lot of the things that we're saying are true up through like the Xenosagas,
Yeah.
like up through, NES, Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2, even, and sometimes further,
Yeah.
and not all of the problems. And there are also little innovations that'll come along, but like that thing about the dungeons being diverse because they have a different wall palette, that's Bravely Default, my dude. That also happens there. Like that is not fixed as a thing. It is not seen as cause for. So yes, we are talking about something that is primitive. We're also talking about something that's timeless because of how stagnant a lot of this genre is.
Yeah.
That's true of later Pokemon games. You go through a cave and it's just a maze with cave walls.
And lest anybody think that we're entirely pinning this on a particular genre that is associated with one country's output, right? Like this is also, I mean, this is true of a bunch of stuff where like a new code of here's Malibu Stacy now with hat, right?
Yeah,
like it just that is a problem that is epidemic, right?
It happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah.
It happened Dragon Age 2.
Yeah.
Did that same thing with its kind of maze, like its weird dead ends and its dungeons and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not, just this genre. For me, what bugs me about it in the genre is that there's so much combat and it's so slow.
Yeah.
So the two end up having like everything that I dislike about, I did like a writing exercise yesterday where I was like, how would I fix this genre? And every change is a constellation. Every change is interdependent, right? So like, I want fewer battles and I want harder battles. Just one of those things wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You have to have them both. It's the same kind of thing here. Like the negative things about this that frustrate me are also interdependent. The mazes are bad because combat's so infrequent. The combat being so frequent rather.
Yeah.
The level ups being so incremental and feeling so bad is necessary because of the frequent combat. If level ups were meaningful, then this frequent combat would make you way too powerful. All the changes are a constellation that I don't know what other word there is for that other than that's the core of the genre. These things that are interdependencies that define what these games are as a genre.
There's core of the genre, but then there's also like what is a concession? What is a concession to kind of market forces? Which is like even back in the day, you look at reviews for when this came out, people were praising its length, right?
Yes.
They were so so even back in 1990, 1992, it was like, oh, this is a game you can play forever and ever, or for 20 hours, which feels like forever and ever. And yes, that is something that like can be praised, and then people get acclimated to that.
People get acclimated to it and people feel nostalgic for it and stuff. Yeah. But our job, right? So like the existential crisis has brought on in me.
And I'm not saying that as an excuse for it too.
No. Yeah. Not at all. What I'm saying though is that there aren't, our job, which is to not to analyze like market forces or what people like necessarily. Like we are not developers, we're not experts in game design or anything, but we've been doing this for a long time. If anyone is uncomfortable calling us critics, I think that what we do does qualify as analysis, right? And that is not something you can analyze. Like a preference for something being long is not. There's nothing to say about it. It's like you like that this is really long because you can play it all summer, versus you can't talk about that, but you can talk about this feels padded. This is repetitive. You do in this game. One of the things I was thinking about with this is that, and this is true of the Bard's Tale too, not putting this on any, this is a genre thing, is not only do you fight thousands of fights, at one point I started noting when fights were exactly the same makeup.
Yeah.
Like you literally just repeat the same content. Like you fight the same fights over and over. Not marginally different, not different at all. That's fucking wild. And that is something you can analyze. Like to me, that does qualify as, there's an argument for that being bad game design, that you do the same thing over and over and over like that.
Yeah.
you know?
For me, the analysis, like the reason I bring up the market forces and then the preferences that that get inculcated into people is like, so well, why is that the case? Why do they decide like, hey, that's okay?
Yeah.
Is just because that's that's the incentive. You're solving for a game of a certain length, so like, yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna we're gonna kind of pad this out with a bunch of very similar content in between. We could make this shorter, more impactful, but then that takes away one of our like key
Or
performance
back of the box.
indicators, your
Yeah.
back of the box bullet point kind of thing. And to
Yeah.
me, like, part of that analysis, is at least looking at that and understanding, like, it's kind of stopping and trying to understand not only how you get like Cheesecake Factory, oh gosh, like food quantities, portions, but like how you
Mhm.
get the Cheesecake Factory menu, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's worth
just
it.
like
There's
market forces creating a monstrosity because
yes.
that is all that can, because that is all that can be sold. Yeah.
And what my like continuing project or like the evolution I have had with this genre through being, something I loved as a kid and am only really being asked to think critically about for work has
Yeah.
been thinking that there are different lenses I can look at it through. There is a historical lens where you can look at market forces and you can look at the context, of
Mhm.
how novel it was to have something that lasted that long. And that was that padded, but I can also look at it from what does this do? What effect does it have? What does this do in terms of keeping me engaged or keeping me interested in
Yeah.
a thing?
And
So there are different lenses of it.
we've chosen an experiential approach, right?
Yes.
That can be informed in part by the historical stuff and the market stuff,
And
like that.
and nostalgia and such, but it's not
That is
enough.
worth
It's not
thinking
all of
through.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all of it. And the because it is an experiential version, like if we were retronauts, right?
Mhm.
And we were talking about this game, I would feel more positively about it because I wouldn't have replayed it.
Yes.
Like I'm not calling those guys out. Like they played the
No.
games they talked about, but they don't play them fresh for the show.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They do a lot of stuff. They don't have time. They both have
Mhm.
day jobs and other stuff they do in addition. But they can talk about this historical stuff and the impact without actually having to sit down and like go through it unless they really want to.
Mhm.
And they typically don't.
Yeah.
Really want to. So like it's a very different experience. That experience is
Yeah.
what influences it. Like, oh, I just had to
Mhm.
do it. I can think back to the context of its time and when I was a kid, but I was just there.
Yeah.
I literally just did it. And
Yeah.
I had an experience whether it was fun or not, or whether it was
Mhm.
engaging, or whether I was incredibly bored and rewatched like the first 4 seasons of It's Always Sunny in another window, like
Yeah.
during it, Um,
Yeah. That said,
Yeah.
mixing the two does really make it pop for me, and that can just be us being very different, analysts, and
Yeah.
different people. But like, just okay. So I just played this. Why is this?
yeah,
You
that is an
know?
interesting question,
Yeah, and like
but
one heightens the other for me. Yeah.
well, for sure. But a lot of the times the answer to that, when we come up with the answer, is not something that I am interested in, which is like what games can accomplish in terms of art.
Yeah.
Like if the answer is market forces for these kind of things, which it oftentimes is,
Yeah.
then that answer is not satisfying to me. I want to know the answer. I'm happy to
Mhm.
know it. I
Yeah.
don't think it is interesting artistically.
Yeah.
And what I'm here for in terms of video games is to appreciate them as art.
Yeah.
That is what I want. I don't want to appreciate them as commerce or as a back of the box item. I'm not saying you do. I'm not
Yeah.
contrasting myself. It's just I also think it's really interesting to figure out why these things happened, even
Mhm.
if they sucked.
Yeah.
But then if the answer is, I don't know, we weren't going for anything artistic there. We were just kind of, this was expected. It was the way
Yeah.
it was always done. That
Mhm.
makes me respect the people making this less. I feel like that is,
Yeah.
to me, that is something to deride.
It is also, to me, again, a conversation I think is worth having, the ways that commerce fails art, like just like, yeah, this is compromised and that fucking sucks. Like we could actually
Yeah.
get better. And that I think is, something that is, prescriptive, or at least, a proposed fix for as much as we understand the forces involved. Right. Like
They didn't
yeah.
do it though. You know,
I
and I
know
don't
they,
think I don't think
know they
I mean for a
didn't, but
long
there are
time
people making
like,
stuff after this. Yeah.
eventually, like, you know, you get to like 2010, 2012,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I mean, people. There are
Like
people
40 years
making it.
afterwards.
There are people
You know?
making it after we record the episode, right? I'm not saying like all the best game developers are out there, but I'm just saying for forward looking in the interest of not just like grousing about it, but to say like, oh, this is a pitfall that was hit. Like, wouldn't it be cool if X, Y, or Z?
Yeah. Thinking of ways to fix it are cool, and thinking
Yes.
of ways that people have addressed these individual problems are cool. But it from a development and from like respecting the artistry standard, there is an element of the people who made these things not considering them a problem, and it makes me trust them less.
Oh yeah.
You know, that like you don't read interviews where they're like, we really wanted to make the encounters impactful. We didn't because we needed this length. That's us reading into it a little bit. There's nothing to suggest because of the history that these creators ever saw it as an issue. They're just like, no, this is what the video game is. You grind out thousands of anonymous battles that don't matter.
Yeah.
It's just, I have a hard time. It's a perspective that is so alien to me from thinking that is good design and good pacing and everything, that it makes me feel doubtful about the bona fides involved, even when there's like tremendous artistry on display in other places.
Right.
You know, it seems like bad game design to me.
Yeah.
Even if it's interesting to analyze. But
how much of it is trying to make a good game versus trying to make a game that will satisfy fans of X or Y.
Yeah. Like, are you interested in your craft?
Yeah.
You know, is this something that you are trying to make better, or are you just trying to make a thing that more people will like and play?
Yeah.
And where the difference in that lies, that is really interesting to me. It's just something with this genre, because it is so steady. You know, things about this game, which are very, old, are also true about Final Fantasy VII, which came out several generations later, is a much more advanced game and has a lot more advanced concepts, but there's still, a lot of the same issues, right?
Yeah.
Like, not all the same issues by any means, but several of the same issues. Just the idea of not developing that craft, like not trying something, like there's not as much experimentation in the core of this. That's why I call that the core of the genre, because that constellation of things feels non-negotiable.
Yeah.
One of the things that's funny, you're talking about pacing it. We're watching Garth Marenghi's Dark Place again, and there's a part where they're like, episodes would regularly come in 6, 7, 8 minutes under time. Anything that wasn't dialogue was considered for slow motion. Like 6, 7, 8 minutes under time. 22-minute show. But yeah, it feels like that. Like anything that's not dialogue is considered for slow motion.
Yeah.
Anywho, like that's I'm not going to try to soapbox. What ends up being frustrating to me about doing these episodes sometimes, and this isn't a frustration to you at all, I'm talking to the audience, is that my experience playing this game is so much informed by the hot feeling on the back of my neck of wanting something in front of my screen to be over as fast as possible, while keeping half my attention on a YouTube video or a TV show. But when we actually talk about the thing, we barely ever talk about that. Yeah. It's almost my entirety of my experience, but it makes up for so little of the conversation, both with us and also people talking about these games in general.
Yeah.
And that contradiction always gets under my nails, so I don't mean to just keep hammering this point. It's just such a huge part of what playing this game actually is in the hands.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have its day. Yeah. Anywho, that's the last I will say of it, but it is a big grindy fighty game that decided, it is what it is.
Yes.
So, for whatever reason.
I kind of lost where we were.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's okay.
I was trying to convince you to watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Maybe. I know I'd like it. Yeah.
I know you like it too. I should bring it for Unfilmable when I've done a comedy break. It's 6 episodes and they're 20 minutes each. So it's basically a movie. And it's so goddamn fucking good. You would love it.
So I think we were talking about the individual towns having their identities, and also talking about like the writings, the accents and the accent stuff. Yeah. What's funny is like there's that accent work. This even back at the time, this was the Dragon Quest where they decided to stop doing the these and thous.
Yes.
And this was the first one, not to have a bunch of stuff like really, really radically changed for being brought over and localized to North America, right? And then add on top of that the fact that the DS and iOS translation that we get here with the punch out of accents is touted as being closer to the original Japanese.
Yeah. They bring it back. The NES version is just people talking.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild. I watched a little bit of it to refresh my memory, but yeah, there's none of that. The graphical style of this series, including this game, is based on illustrations by Akira Toriyama, who does all the monster designs of the series. The monster design, I don't particularly love the character designs in this. I'm not a Dragon Ball guy. I think Duke can design monsters with the best of them.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
The Dragon Quest bestiary is one of my favorites. It's exceedingly good. Everything is real cute, fucked up little dudes, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah, real cute. I mean, even like everybody knows the slime, but do you know the lick spittle?
Yeah.
And it's a shame because like I'm seeing a fucked up little guy and I want to root for him and stuff, but then I do have to do this combat around it.
Yeah. You have to punch him.
Yeah, but the iconography is unassailable in Dragon Quest. I think specifically the monster design and stuff, and that's why there are whole games around that.
And it's also a big strength. Again, shouting it out when I can. It is a genre strength. The Final Fantasy bestiary is incredibly distinctive and good.
Yes.
As well. It is a win for the genre. Like they do good bestiaries.
Yeah. Similarly, music. The composer here continues, Koichi Sugiyama, who makes very catchy hooks. I just ever since playing this, I've had like 7 of them going in my head at once. It's like a fun house in here, and I am slowly losing my mind. Problem with Sugiyama: don't look up his politics.
Oh yeah, I've never done.
Japanese fascist guy. Yeah.
Cool.
He passed recently, and there was like I didn't know about this because I'm not a Dragon Quest kid. But people are like, oh yeah, like there are all these tributes, and it's like just
womp
womp and a womp. Good music though.
Good music. Agreed. The variation on this of the castle theme from Dragon Quest 1, my old video game music cover band covered that with just keyboards and bass. We did a duet of that old version.
Neat.
It was cool. So a lot of development details in the section. We talked about interviews on Shmuppalations. All I can think of is Barney's beautiful but unfortunately titled Pocahontas when I see that name. Like, oh, it's Shmuppalations. That's really the name you're going with.
It's not even Shmuppulations, which feels more like a word to me. It's Shmuppalations.
Shmuppalations. Christ.
Sure, man.
Series director Yuji Horii returned to lead the project. It began in 1987 with a staff planning retreat.
Yeah. According to the interview, they left this retreat basically having most of the ideas in place for what they were going to do. The plan was always to emphasize this AI. They really wanted to, and they thought this was very future forward looking. Right.
Yes.
And this is partly because they felt like they had solved how to bring that Wizardry Ultima, dungeon crawler combat from PC to consoles. With Dragon Quest 3, they're like, okay, we've figured out how to do that. Like, let's try and do our own thing and step out on a limb. And this is the limb that they chose.
Let's make it less interactive.
Yeah.
They're not crazy about how it came out. They have some misgivings about that. The AI not being as reliable as they want it to be, and battles being far too easy, so you don't actually have to swap out your party members in the wagon. They're recognizing they give you options that are unnecessary.
Yes. Yeah. This is a more story forward game than the previous ones were. This has 3 times as much dialogue as was found in Dragon Quest 3. And the writing process took more than 7 months. So significant chunk of development time, especially like at the time, like if you look at the rate at which Dragon Quest games were kind of pumped out.
This is back in the day. Like now we have all these very long development cycles. That wasn't the case.
Yes.
Game got rave reviews, sold like absolutely crazy in Japan, which was the style at the time. New Dragon Quest, there's that urban legend about school being out,
Yeah.
on Dragon Quest Day.
Yeah.
Huge.
It turns out that was just a law that was proposed. It was never
Yes.
mandated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Doki Doki fact. It's a gamer misinformation
Mhm.
thing. I'm sure. I bet you we've accidentally spread that at least
Yeah,
once.
maybe. Yeah.
The American reception of this was a little bit more muted, was we expected at the time. The games had not broken over. Famously, Dragon Quest being included with Nintendo Power
Yeah.
subscriptions for a while because they were trying to make it a hit. Here.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is a really late NES game.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
1992. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were like a year away from Star Fox, and here we have this. Yeah.
RPG fans, wanted to have an SNES games at the time.
Yes.
They weren't looking back at this.
Yeah.
One real thing, it's something I was thinking about recently. With this, I was thinking about the American reception of console RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how things would be different if they spent marketing and spent time courting people who had played like PC RPGs at the time. So rather than trying to capture like the Mario audience or the action game audience, if they're like, these people are used to reading and stats and stuff. What if we tried to sell NESs on the basis of like, hey, you like wizardry? Here's a articulation of wizardry on a different kind of thing.
I think people who like wizardry are too deranged to appreciate.
No way. This is so similar to wizardry, and people who liked wizardry were the same people who liked this in Japan. Like, there's a one-to-one crossover.
So you mean over here? But it's like, okay, play this on. But like wizardry was like 1980. Like that had already advanced. People, like marketing this to people who were playing PC RPGs, at the time in 1990
would have been like gold box.
and 92.
Yeah. But I'm thinking about like Dragon Quest 1 or Final Fantasy 1, marketing it to people who had played like, Bard's Tale. I wonder if trying to capture that audience rather than the NES, where the strength of the NES was this smooth scrolling and kinetic action. The hallmark of the NES does not play to the strengths of this. You look at how they had to do localization, and the big Bitmap book of JRPGs. They have a big chapter on localization. They talk about just because of the language differences, it being such a chore to fit these many words into the NES cartridge. Like putting this genre on a console in the first place was a sideways fit. That's not me being partisan about whether it should be done. It's me saying that it was difficult. I wonder if that was good energy, and if they had aimed differently, if the breakthrough would not have been as hard to make.
So instead of marketing this to say like, hey, you're a console player, you see how the PC half lives, market it to PC people and say, hey, see how the console half lives.
Yeah. It's a smaller audience. I mean, at market forces, like it's a smaller install base, but they famously had such a hard time getting these games to sell here. And I don't think it's that surprising, right? Like, we were Mario kids. All right. This isn't RBI baseball. This isn't, and I'm curious about that.
There's nary a Time Lord to be found here.
Yeah, it seems like a smoother transition to me. Wait, like this Toad battles, but it's not a battle Toad. I was just curious about that in an alternate history kind of way.
So it didn't hit very well over here. This got a Japan-only remake for the PlayStation, built using the Dragon Quest VII engine. This ended up being the basis for the DS port. Those DS ports are really good, and also like it was the first official release of Dragon Quest 5 and 6. And they released this whole trilogy together.
Yeah, the Zamvaran trilogy, or Zenithian trilogy.
Zenithian.
There we go. There's a hidden eye in there. So the breakout character of this series is Torneko, known as Taloon in the US, who would go on to star in a spin-off series, Torneko's Great Adventure. Also eventually got into the Mystery Dungeon. Shows up in XP of this character shows up in Dragon Quest 8. It is the Chonky Merchant character, who is probably my favorite character in the game, just in terms of like, I found that chapter to be a slog to actually play through, but it was undeniably neat.
Yes.
I would have I did eat that shit up as a kid.
Oh yeah.
But it's like, even thinking back to like, if that was a really cool idea as a kid. Some issues with execution, but it's a really cool idea.
It's a huge swing. So that's not the only standout character. The game's villain here, Pissarro.
Sorrow the Manslayer.
Sara the Manslayer, yes.
Yeah.
Anime Bishinen guy.
Yes.
Ends up being the main character of this upcoming game, the new Dragon Quest Monsters game, Evil Prince. Had no idea
Yeah.
who that fool was. People were all excited about it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, here we go. Dragon Quest 4. I get it now.
He's a guy.
Yeah.
So this is the start of a new trilogy, creating this new mythos. The first trilogy is the Erdrick trilogy. This is the Zenithian trilogy.
Yes.
And Dragon Quest went on to be absolutely huge in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
It sticks to its
it was and continued to be.
It is still continues to be, so much so that like the most recent entry, absolutely huge. You end up with things like Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is like a character from Yakuza wanting to be a Dragon Quest guy. It is a cultural monolith there. And it really feels like a lot of times their attempts at experimentation are kind of slapped. You end up with things like was it 10, the one that's the MMO for DS? Things like that, the action MMO for DS.
Even 9, I think 10 was like a Wii
I might be thinking of the 9 then.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of and 9. I mean, they were both really similar. Like 10 never even came out here. People were put off by those diversions. Yeah, and
then 11 came out, and it was just, let's do an absolutely straight putt console RPG with some ease of use features, and people loved it. Same thing with 8. The same thing happened with 8 after the experimentation of 7.
Yes. Yeah. So Dragon Quest 4 would be, or Dragon Warrior 4 at the time, that would be the last game from the series released in the United States for 8 years, until the release of Dragon Warrior 7 in the year 2000, well after the sell-by date. Of a game of that fidelity.
SNES looking game.
Yes. 7. We never got 5 or 6 until the DS versions. Neither of the SNES Dragon Quest came over here.
Yeah. No. And this version is better than the European region.
No.
Or this is better, rather, sorry. This is what we got was better than they got in the European version.
Yeah.
They didn't get the series at all until Dragon Quest 8.
Yeah.
If you were a pal. Pal.
That's something that came up in the Terra Enigma episode. Like, we just kind of take for granted like how the SNES RPG scene went. Like, like this was monolithic. Like, everybody had this experience of how cool that was. No, and in Europe, all they got was Terra Enigma.
Yep. Eat your Signosis and like it. So let's get into it with the lowest stakes prologue of all time.
I can't tell what's weirder, not having this and then cold opening on Ragnar, and just that feels more avant-garde. Just cutting into these vignettes, but also having this prologue basically be nothing, establishing a character we won't see again for 10 hours is real weird.
It's extremely weird. It ends with people sitting down to have dinner. There's no sense of we had to propel the story forward.
Yeah.
I laughed out loud at this. So our chosen hero is training with the sword, finishing up. We didn't talk about this in generalities. I think it's worth talking about. One thing that they add to add interactivity to this that I think is a monkey's paw thing is checking barrels for stuff.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if that was new. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember if that's in the. I think that's in the Nintendo version, but I don't think you smash them.
Yeah.
Here you smash them. They put meaningful shit in there, including this like mini game about collecting these medals to give you a collectathon element. This ended up being something that I was welcome at first because it was something to do, and then became a very annoying checklist. Yeah. Because once I realized like, oh, there are stat increases in there. Every map you have to go around and Katamari like room up all the barrels. So you can do that a little bit in here. That's what made me think of that. But anyways, after this, you go upstairs and your adopted sister Eliza shows up to play a prank, pretending to be transformed into an enchanted frog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just some sibling japes.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. And then you follow them back in. It turns out they can turn into a frog. They have the spell, and then you go back to your house and have dinner. I felt like I had missed something in this. I was like, I didn't. Because you don't know which house is yours, so I just went into a random house and it started the dinner cutscene. And I thought I was exploring, and I wasn't.
You don't even really live in a town. You're in a little compound meant entirely to protect and train you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's and then that ends. It's like, I cannot wait to get back to these dining adventures.
It's a cozy life game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it does have a frog in it.
That's
so
true.
Of course it's a cozy game, given that it's all cozy games must star frog now.
Yeah. But this roughly cuts, and we are now across the world. We're at Chapter 1, Ragnar McRyan and the Case of the Missing Children. We are up in Groundskeeper Willy Land.
We're going to save the mole children.
The wee baby turtles.
The mole bairns. So we are a palace guard in the Kingdom of Berland. Everyone is extremely Scottish here.
Yeah.
And the king wants us to investigate the disappearances of the local children.
Right.
And you go outside, you talk to people in the town. There is a woman we talk to named Agnes, who talks about how her husband, Angus, went missing. Agnes, rather, went missing. There's a couple little cute bits. There's an old man who says he's going to join your party and follows you around for a little bit, and then can't hack it.
He's tired, so not really great at combat, but that's fun.
You're introduced to the equipment curve in this, which is another ding I have on these, where like you just want to buy the most expensive thing that you can use. It's always the best thing. There's not really a choice about weapons in this. Eventually, Dragon Quest would do more with this. You would have weapons that did less damage but cleaved, things like that. So you would make kind of more tactical choices here. There's a tiny little bit of that, but it's mostly just pick the most expensive thing that you can use.
Yeah. It's like for particular characters, like there's one later. Well, maybe we'll get to them in this episode, but like you could either equip them with a really good weapon, or you can equip them with the cards for fortune telling. Right.
Yeah. To give them so there's a little bit of that, but generally there's not a whole lot of it. And the way you go and get that money is you just go out and fight slimes. Yeah. So you go out and do that while until you can equip yourself.
Yeah, and you go poking around. Some people talk about this. Some people talk about this cave that's nearby, like Strathbale Burrow. Really nothing special. It's just a cave to go kill slimes. We do when you're in the woods. We're introduced to status effects. There are bubble slimes, which are little bubbly puddles with the smiley faces on them that'll poison you. Frustratingly, I mean, like you've got to either use a consumable or go back to town and get purified at the church to have that taken off of you. It doesn't wear out over time.
The priest sucks out all the poison for you. They don't teach that anymore. I don't care. Yeah. So eventually you get to Strathbale, Bale, and everyone in town is talking about a man who's in jail. Seems to be pretending to be a child,
which to me seemed like a more like a wilder swing for this story to take than what ends up happening. Yes. It's like, oh no, like they're super aging all the children.
I also really like the idea of somebody being put in jail for pretending to be a kid. I just like, oh, you're so whimsical.
Pee Wee Herman, rest in peace.
Yeah. Like,
I know you are, but
you're
what
a child
am
of
I?
heart? Fuck
incarcerated.
Yeah. I thought that was funny as well. If that was what was going on. Artificially aging the children is also interesting.
To what end?
Ragnar McRyan and the Progeria murders.
Oh man.
So this is the missing man. This is the missing husband. Angus. I think I called him Agnes earlier. It's Angus.
Yes.
Because he's Scottish.
Yeah. So we go to Berland and grab his wife, Agnes. Take her to see him, And we get a little bit of happy wife, happy life kind of humor here, where she's unable. She doesn't, he doesn't recognize her. She snaps him out of the fugue by showing her wedding ring, and the memory of how much it cost jars him back to sanity.
Yes, women be spending.
I just want to sit in my den and look at my neon beer sign.
Have you seen the St. Pauli girl's tits? Puff puff, man, puff puff. So he tells a story. Something attacked him, and he got so scared that he lost his mind. So it regressed into the mind of a child. Yeah. But he does remember the children talking about a playground in the woods southeast of town. So we're going to head there. Go into the forest, and when we're near a well, we hear a voice. One weird thing about this is you can go down every well.
Yep.
Usually there's just a little money down there, but it's a real weird feature. The other thing is the money down there has a little sparkle, so you pick it up. In the NES version, through the old Nightmare NES Dragon Quest nested menu system.
Oh god,
you would just search. They didn't call these spots out. You just had to search random spots.
Nightmare
to find them.
Nightmare shit.
Tower of Draga, burn a random bush Zelda bullshit. That for some reason we all accepted.
Yeah, just Friday the 13th, jump in random spots to have the Time Lord show up.
Shit, I hate it. So we go into this well.
Second Time Lord ref.
Time Lord is back, baby. We're replacing Lisa. Sorry, also colorblind for Lisa. We're replacing Lisa with Time Lord.
But we've already covered it. We did it on the anniversary episode.
Oh yeah, we did do that in an anniversary episode of games we fucking hate. The voice the well guides us through this cave that we get to. As we go to the cave, we'll get to different junctions. If you go the wrong way, it says not that way. So you have to keep going the right way.
Come and find me.
Yeah. He centipedes you. We find a set of shoes with the wings on them that can be used when the time is right.
It's very ominous. That description just shows up on different items.
Yeah. The time is right is when you're going outside usually for shoes, but
usually, yeah. We also find Healy down here. Yes. Kind of a mascot character in his own right. Yeah. This is a heel slime, which I always think they look kind of horrifying with the little tentacles hanging out beneath them.
They're grosser than a regular slime.
Yeah. But it's Healy, and they swear that they will be human one day. They can speak, and ask to tag along, kind of to come on the quest. Speaks with slime and ooze puns. And a weird thing about the way that Dragon Quest IV was marketed, the fact that you could have monsters join your party was considered to be like a front of the box thing. Yeah. Even though it happens twice. You get Healy and you get a dragon later.
It's barely a thing. It is neat. It's not a Dragon Quest innovation necessarily. Like you can negotiate with monsters and stuff in Phantasy Star. So having non-hostile monsters is a cool thing, but it wasn't a trailblazer. Yeah. And you may remember Healy from Rocket Slime.
Yes.
Healy was a character in that. So he comes along with you. Basically, he's just an AI heal bot. He solves that Dragon Quest I issue of getting in that death spiral loop.
Yeah. Smart.
He mentions the kids were using the wing shoes outside and using them to fly up into the air. They call it height maxing, and it's killing your children.
The kids call it sucking cloud.
Yeah. Hey man, do you think that cloud's full of jankum? Only one way to find out.
As we've been exploring around the kingdom here, there is a lake with a tower at the center of it that we've been unable to get to. If you use the flying shoes near this tower, you're able to jump over and you land on top of kind of the dungeon for this chapter, Loctur.
Yes, which is very modest. Like this is fine. This doesn't wear out its welcome too much. As you're going through, you spot a monster dragging a kid down the stairs. So we follow, of course. We're trying to save kids. And we find a dying knight. I love the idea that he's done all the stuff that we just already did. Like he found another pair of shoes and stuff. He says that the Lord of the Underworld is awakening, but there's a hero out there that's destined to take him down.
Yeah. He didn't find the shoes we found. He found like the off-brand ones. Like we found the Nikes, and he found the flying Asics.
Adidas. Yeah. Extra stripe.
Yeah. But yeah, like, hey, Lord of Underworld is coming, big problems, things here. The monsters, they are targeting children, specifically trying to find this chosen one who has been prophesied, who will eventually undo their plans, right?
It's Willow reasons.
Yes.
They're sending people out into the Nelwyn villages to get all of the children.
I am just going to believe you.
You've seen Willow.
No,
you've heard me talk about Willow enough.
I know.
I think you honorarily have seen Willow. I know.
No, don't you, that's like Mormons baptizing people after death.
It's exactly
like,
what it is. You're going to drive by baptizing with a squirt gun and you're going to deal with
it. Super soaker full holy water.
I'm the Punisher with baptisms. And nobody will.
Don't you disrespect my agency by baptizing me into the Willow cult.
Well, too bad. Too late. So it's the same. It's the plot of Willow. So they're doing that. This came before Willow. No, it didn't.
Okay.
But anyway,
hey, I don't know who you're asking about that. If there's anybody who's going to fucking know, it's going to be you.
I was asking me, and I was making sure that I didn't want anyone to think I was accusing anyone of stealing anything.
Okay.
There. So anyway, so that's why they're doing it. They want to make sure they want to kill the hero as a baby before he gets strong and grinds to adulthood, like we all did. We reach the main room of the tower, and this is where we're introduced to Sorrow's pawn, Pissarro. I always say Sorrow.
Sorrow sounds like a word. Let's say Sorrow.
Yeah, Pissarro isn't really a word, even though it is a little less on the nose.
Yeah.
Sorrow's pawn and a Winky are about to hurt wee Willy Wally. Tiny Dinky Daffy is about to get pancaked by but they attack you instead.
Right.
Once you've seen their plan, you cannot be let out alive.
Right.
This is our boss fight for the chapter.
This Winky is nothing. Later ones can this one didn't do it for me, but they can cast like Steel Body on themselves and make themselves invulnerable. They can do like debuff kind of stuff. Here it's just like, hey, kill this guy. Before you kill the other guy. Sorrow's pawn will attack all. Like they'll do spit fire at both you and Healy if you happen to have Healy. Healy is optional, by the way. But it doesn't do too much damage. Like this is basically nothing.
Yeah. Yep. You sleepwalk through it. You return the kids back to Strathbale, and then go to the king, and he offers a reward. And one of the weirdest things he does is he rewards you in XP.
Yes.
That's bizarre. I didn't know that characters could do that, and it makes me really resent grinding. If he wants me to go on this mission and he can just make his warriors better magically.
This is getting quest XP is what it is.
Yeah. Well, he says it as a reward though. He's like, I will reward you. I mean, it is quest XP, but I want that instead of. In addition to. But anyway, he asks what you want, and you say you want to go travel the world and find and protect the destined hero.
Yeah.
This is going to make me sound like a parody of myself. I really like the length of this chapter. It's the only one, for things this short, I think this is a really good length. And I would have liked it if the other prologue chapters were the same length. They all feel a little like they sell past the close to me.
Yeah.
They get to a climactic moment and then keep going. So,
agreed.
My favorite character in the game is Alina. In the next chapter, Alina and the Journey to the Tourney.
They start getting a little too cute with these chapter names. I need them to calm down.
Yeah, they're really. I mean, that's Dragon Quest. That's what they're doing.
I know.
That's the ambiently defined thing called charm that people talk about with these games. That humans call charm. But Alina is fun. I think Alina is a pretty fun character. It's an archetype. You know, it's a very standard thing, but it's a fun archetype. Yeah. Whereas Ragnar had none. It's not
just what if night? Yeah.
Unflavored for me. It's at the very least a flavor.
Yeah. So this takes place in Russia. It's in Russia land. We start out in Zamoska, and our opening here, the opening scroll, talks about this tomboy princess, Tsarevna Elena, who wants to journey to test her strength. But her dad, the Tsar, forbids her. It's a little confusing because Elena's art, for all the world, makes her look like a witch.
Yeah, she has a witch's hat.
Yeah,
it's not ambiguous. She's wearing a Halloween costume of a witch. But yeah, she is a kung fu fighter. Is
Yes,
kind of her class. He's a monk.
like a monk archetype. Eventually
Yeah.
gets to use like claws and stuff.
Yes.
Whereas oh gosh, Ragnar was like a knight, can use heavy
Yeah.
armor and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So there's a repairman mending a hole in your wall because you kept kicking it.
Mhm.
When he leaves, you can kick it again, and you
Yeah.
escape out of the castle. You dive off the second floor, right in front of the room where they lock up the priest from the outside. I think that's very dark and weird. I don't get that. There is a Dragon Quest staple in this that, again, I'm going to ding things I don't like about the series. That there are locked doors, and then later they give you a key,
Mhm.
and you come back and unlock them.
Yeah.
I understand what they're doing with this. The idea of that's supposed to entice you.
Mhm.
It feels like padding to me. It feels like it's encouraging backtracking.
I mean,
To
explicitly,
me,
like you revisit a bunch of these locations in chapter 5 after you've already
yes,
gone through them. Yeah.
with just having a key, that feels crass to me. But we're
Yeah.
going to run into those here. That is, I can't remember if there are any in Ragnar's Zone, but
I
we're
think
definitely going to run into them here.
there's at least one treasure room in the
Gotcha.
castle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we're going to escape, Boria, who is an old mage, kind of
Yep.
our magic teacher before it was discovered we were not very good with magic, and Kirill, who is a young priest who has a crush on Elena, or Lena. They catch her and insist like, hey, if you're going to do this, we're going to at least come along to protect you.
Yeah. Good for them. So we have a party now. That's the step up in complexity. So we're going to head to the village of Toborov. We're just setting out. The village mayor talks about how a monster is demanding his daughter, Anastasia, as a sacrifice. And we offer to help. We're trying to prove ourselves. So we say, what if you sent us instead?
Mm-hmm.
And the NES version, he goes, don't litter in the litter. And I go, not fucking planning on it. But in this version, they don't say anything. They just put you in the box.
They just
get in the box.
Get in the box. We're going to ship you to the kidnap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get in the Shinobalo. He sends you to these sacrifice grounds that they have. Cheery place in Anastasia's place.
Yes, and we are attacked by Master Kung and his 2 foo dogs.
Yes.
His staff attack hits pretty hard. The Master Kung guy. Like this is being one shot. You want to use Kirill to stay healed up. You can control Kirill, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty standard boss fight thing. Like kill the ads first.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and then you have a turn economy advantage that is insurmountable.
Something that is a welcome step up in the DS version. Presume this was present in the PlayStation version, but I never played it. Is the enemies are animated when they attack?
Yes.
Like they have a little, they move. Whereas Dragon Quest, kind of for most of its life, even up into like Dragon Quest 7, I believe,
they glow
the enemies,
a little bit.
they would just kind of flash when they did stuff. Which, aesthetics are not everything, but also like. I just it's Hank Hill having to stay in that hotel that's you got all the flies like the room's a little bit dreary, so can we get a fly trap that's a little festive? I just want a fly trap that's a little festive.
It is a little festive to have this. In other kind of very minor improvements in the NES version where you had AI for these characters, the AI for the first time would not whiff. Mm-hmm. Like if they attacked a target that was killed, they would switch targets. The problem though in the NES version, and I remember this, like this is such an irritating thing that I remember as a kid. They wouldn't do it, but your character would.
Oh God!
So they would scoop kills from you.
Oh,
and you had no real way to control them other than these vague commands. So you would be like, okay, I'm going to kill this guy. They would just make their own decision. You don't know what it is. They would decide to kill that guy, and you'd whiff your attack. Obviously there's a problem in Final Fantasy 1 that's been a thing forever, whiffing attacks. It's real dumb. It makes it feel very artificial.
Punishing me for incomplete information. I had no way to control that.
I had it's not my fault. So this guy relatively tough by these standards. You take him out. The next day the village elder says, hey, there's a tournament in Endau. That'd be a great place for you to prove your strength.
I think they say Endau, it's Endor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the I was just Star Wars.
Yeah. No, I think it is wild that they had a chance to change the name of it and they kept it as Endor.
Yeah. The replacements put an album called Let It Be. It's that kind of thing. I love it. Good for them. The balls on the replacements.
Yeah.
You know, this is called the White Album. Fuck you. It's so good.
You think you could have that? That's a good album too. The replacements, let it be.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, the replacements are wonderful.
Yeah.
So on the way, we head north here. These are all very linear outdoor sections. Like there is kind of an open world, but there's so little to do. You're just going to visit the towns in the order it wants you to.
Yeah.
You head north and you find a town where in Vrenor, where people are talking about the Tsarina, Alina being there.
Yeah.
And they don't know,
and they're not pointing
fake.
at you.
Yeah, they don't know that's fake, but you do. Like, oh wait, that's me. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go and go see her, like, hey, somebody's stealing my identity here. And we arrive just in time to find these two, to see these two kidnappers run off with her out the back of the inn. Yeah.
Yep. A kid in town talks about a note that his dog found. This is very indirect and a little frustrating to me. Like, you just have to talk to everybody to get this. The kidnappers want a ransom. There's really no reason why they wouldn't give you this letter or leave it where they are. Instead, they attached it to a dog on the off chance that you would talk to the dog's owner.
I mean, it's world building. People communicate by dogogram.
In Russia.
Yes.
So this is the ransom letter. I decided to put it on a dog. That says that they needed to you need to bring the treasure of Vrenor to the vault, from the vault to the cemetery at night.
Yeah.
And allows us to go south to the vault of Vrenor.
Yeah. This is a 2-screen dungeon. We got some skeletons in the scenery, making it a little bit festive.
Yep, exactly.
And just slightly tougher enemies. I make a note occasionally when an enemy does something new. Probably that thing had showed up before, but I just didn't make a note of it, or it didn't proc for me. So, if things are being added here, just understand, the process.
Yeah, it is. You're fighting a lot of battles. It is hard to remember individual battles.
Yes.
Even when they do something new, because it melanges so much in my mind. It is a weird, blurry swath of fights.
Yeah. So we get the armlet at the bottom. So I've not beaten this game yet. But something in its favor, like even having done all of the kind of intro chapters here, for this, like none of the dungeons are especially big. Like they're all pretty sprightly so far. Does that continue to be the case?
There are certainly some longer ones in the back half. Yeah. The back half of this game, I think, is much worse than the front half of it. It feels like it sells past the close. It's selling past the concept. It's kind of neat to finally be able to put together a party with all these people, but it's undercut by the fact that there's kind of, at least to my mind, like a pretty obvious party you want. And the things you are doing are not as interesting. The story scale switches from personal to grandiose, and the dungeons get bigger and it gets grindier and all that jazz. It's a pretty big, if the whole thing was just these vignettes, it's a great traditional console RPG, Guadia Quest from Retro Game Challenge.
That's
basically the length of one of these chapters, but it's a whole game. And it does a lot of neat stuff. Like those are but anyway, so I don't mean to poison the chalice. It will get rougher.
No, I know. I know roughly the contours of it. I was just curious about the dungeon length more than anything.
So we head back. We give the armlet to the kidnappers. We had to go in at night and go to the graveyard. The graveyard's 3 graves. It's a very blessed town, even though that is 40% of the population. But the fake princess there says she's an entertainer named Anya, who is pretending to be the princess because people were nice to her when she did that. She promises to stop and gives you the thief key as a reward.
And this just that'll let you open some doors. Like it's the first of the keys that'll get you. Yeah.
Go back to town if you'd like, and go open those doors.
Right. So we progress, just again looking for new towns, trying to find places for Alina to prove her mettle, and we reach this desert bazaar, kind of southwest of Raynor, and when we reach the oasis at the center, a palace guard from from back home comes as like, hey, something terrible has happened. You need to go see him. He has lost. Yeah, you get there and all you get is the dots.
And he's just farting nonstop.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. Love that joke.
Yeah.
He has completely lost his ability to speak. And
Yep.
the only person who has went through something similar that anybody knows of is this bard, who you may have spoken to before. He's just
Lives on your roof.
hanging out on a roof. Yeah.
Yeah. He's really annoying when you talk to him beforehand. He's very obnoxious.
He's a bard.
Yeah, he's a very obnoxious version of a bard for sure. Not as obnoxious as the bard in Neverwinter Nights 2.
Yeah.
So we go to the town, we go up on the roof and talk to him. He drank something, when this happened to him, he drank something called birdsong nectar from the Desert Bazaar, where we just were at to get that. And yeah.
That's a problem with this chapter. It's an awful lot of just walking the entire length of this continent back and forth.
Yes. It is a padding.
Just stretch.
Yeah. It shows we're regularly coming in 6, 7, 8 minutes short. Anything that didn't have dialogue was considered for slow motion in Dragon Quest IV. So the item shop lady says that she got this from the Elven Birdsong Tower to the west. You get to the basement, we got bad news about the attic. So we go there. Kind of a miniature dungeon. Here. There are these little crested viper guys who are a new enemy. They debuff your defense. There are these peepers enemies that can buff themselves with steel body, and then scream to freeze a party member in fear. Typically for status effects, we have the standard ones. The new ones are one that does not allow you to fight. I can't remember what that's called. That's like aged or something like that. It's a weird one. And then fear, which doesn't let you do anything. There's not a individual cure item for fear. Nope. You wait it out. Yeah. Which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Same thing with oh gosh, I mean like poison is really the only one you can actually cure with an item. Your mages can get they love cast and fizzle on you.
Yes.
Stopping you from casting.
Essentially mute. That is a big bummer. So it makes status effects like a real chore. You're doing shoulder runs a lot of the time. Because it's not even really testing if you can be prepared, because you cannot be prepared. You can't buy items for this. It's not about the long campaign. It's about, I don't know. It's about tedium.
Yeah. A good number of them do go away after the end of the fight, though. Yeah.
It makes the fight more annoying.
Yes.
You reach the top of this, and we find 2 elves, Daisy and Baby Oopsie. Baby Oopsie, they panic and flee. They drop their nectar.
Yeah.
Here.
Which sounds like a ghastly euphemism. They just have a container of nectar and they drop it.
Made a big piss. Just squat down, did a big old piss on the ground, and you slurp it. You take it back to the czar.
Gross, man.
Yeah. You take it back to the czar, and the czar says that his voice loss was preceded by a nightmare about a monster climbing up from the underworld to destroy everything. The way these are tying into the actual plot really varies in strength. So far we're just we've heard of like a bad thing happening through dreams and premonitions.
Yes.
It's not very directly tied. The end of this does more to tie it though. He says, listen, if you want to keep traveling, you do it.
Yes.
Because you might be able to find a way to stop this nightmare from coming true.
Yeah. So get stronger so you can fight it. Right.
Yeah, go to the land of Endor, go to the Ewok zone.
Yeah, go to the big town. If you're going to prove yourself, you will do it there. So we pass through this warp to go over to the Kingdom of Endor, where a lot of these stories are going to end up. And we're going to fight in their tournament, which they're holding. We do meet Ragnar on the other side of the warp. He says, hey, I'm on this quest to find the chosen one. Are you a chosen one?
Yeah, nope. Okay. This is a neat moment. It is cool to have the characters coexist. Before they actually get together. I think that's cool. So you reach town, everyone's talking about this tournament. Whoever wins is going to gain Princess Veronica's hand in marriage. And people are worried that awful Sorrow the Manslayer will win. This real Grievous Wormtongue shit.
Yeah.
Do you want Truth Heart Honor Guard to be your advisor? Or Grimace Wormtongue? Would you like to marry Prince Noble? Or Sorrow the Manslayer?
Why did we let the Dark Lord take the throne?
Yeah, it's very funny. And the king requests that you win the tournament, because if a girl wins the tournament, she can't possibly marry a girl, so the whole thing will be called off.
Beyond the realm of absurdity.
Yeah, just the gender read on this this chapter is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
They've
the
even made a
chatter.
pill that allows girls to make love to one another. Did you know about that? Did you hear about that?
Man, science can do anything these days.
Yeah, science can do anything these days. Hold up.
Uh,
How? But, huh.
oh wait,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
It's funny the chatter around the kingdom. They're like, "Hey, our king is real impulsive. Like he talked a bunch of shit about like
Yeah.
holding this tournament and putting his daughter up as a prize, but he didn't stop to think that maybe there was Sarah the manslayers about."
And he can't back out on it.
Nope.
He's just choosing not to. He's like, yeah, I don't know. I'll sacrifice my entire kingdom, I guess, for this shit. I mean, yeah, it's the characters are acting dumb.
Yes.
Here. What I find very frustrating is you fight in the tournament, and the tournament reduces this to the absolute barest bones it can be. We're not even in fight magic item.
No.
We're just in fight item
Yep.
mode. They're just endurance tests.
Mm-hmm.
I find this very frustrating because it could be really cool. You would take these enemies out to highlight different things, and they do have the enemies be different, but you are always the same.
Yeah.
Your verb is not change. At the in between battles, you just get to choose how many herbs you want to eat to get your health back up. So it's really just a test of whether you've grinded enough money to have an herb restore or your repository. That's not interesting. That's very frustrating to me. You fight, and also the last boss of this is very frustrating.
Yeah.
So Attila the Hunk is just a balanced fighter. Quick Draw Magor is fast. Prima Donna uses magic, and Samson Knight has high defense.
Yes.
They all fall before your claws. You just claw, you fight.
Yes.
Fight until they die. Until you get to the
it's important to say that you don't have your fuckwets with you.
Yeah, you don't have your party. Yeah. It's just you. Until you fight the Abominable Showman, who is an abominable snowman who splits into doppelgangers, where you have to hit the real one. There are 4 of them. It is random. This is just trial, and this is bullshit.
This really sucks. I did have some success. It felt like I had some success. Who knows? But like looking for the one of them that was most out of phase with the animations, because like the animations had started at different times as they were spawned in. That felt like a way to do it, but also it was like analyzing what felt like split seconds changes in pixels on my laptop screen.
I've read that it's random, but I don't know if that's actually true. I haven't done the nuts and bolts. But in terms of how it felt, there wasn't an obvious tell, and it's one of those damned if you do it, damned if you don't things. Like if there is an obvious tell, you just fight. It doesn't really matter that they're doing it,
which is why. Yeah.
If there's not, it's bad. Like there's no good way to do this, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you just if it is entirely random and there's no way to tell, there is nothing stopping you from just always targeting the one on the left if it's a 1 out of 4 chance every time.
Exactly. Like what else are you going to do? Again, turning you into an algorithm.
Yeah.
So eventually it's time for Sorrow the Manslayer to come out, but he no-showed.
Yes.
And because of this, you defaulted. You're declared the winner.
Mm-hmm. So yay, the kingdom is saved. You can talk to the princess afterwards, and she seems real relieved because she's going to be able to choose her own suitor. We're going to find later that she is in love with somebody. We're going to hook them up. But she does. She's a little curious. She heard about that bill. She says, though, if you were a boy.
Yeah, it's very, very, very funny. And like for we're joking about this for the time. Like I understand they weren't going to just have full on gay. Royalty, even just having that little line in there was like mildly transgressive for the time. It's just funny now. I'm not. This is not a cinema sin.
You're not holding 1990 game against 2023 expectations.
Certainly not. It's just very funny in retrospect.
Yes.
So there is a guard, a dying Zamoskva guard, who tells you to return to the palace. When you get there, it's entirely empty.
Yeah.
And that's a cool mystery. Alina and the others set out to find what happened, and in a good bit of pacing in this, right when you're going to go do that, like when Ragnar was just going to go out and find people, that was vague. We've been to the 2 towns on your island, Ragnar.
Yeah.
This was a cool hook. And then them cutting to the next thing. I think this is a good bit of editing.
Agreed.
Here. Pacing, even though this chapter I think is one of a lot of missed potential. This is a really neat idea that is, I don't think, executed particularly well, but it is a very neat idea. This is chapter 3, Torneco and the Extravagant Excavation.
Yeah. So we are basically in Ireland
Yes.
here. We start out in a small town called Lacanaba, and the intro talks about Torneco Talun, who is just this menial worker, as a clerk at a weapon shop, but he wants to be the greatest arms merchant in all the land. He
I will
wants
be
to
the Lord of War.
I will Lord of War it. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Have you ever seen Lord of War? I'd like to become that. I love the way that this just treats being an arms merchant as an unassailable good. Again, 2023 eyes, but it's very funny.
Yeah.
And the way this is noteworthy, the way this blew my little mind, and the reason why it has a lot of affection now is that you're doing mostly mundane shit.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really early example of that. Like, that is why Quantic Dream exists. You know, like the thrill of having to brush your teeth. It's the Shenmue.
Mm-hmm.
It's the reason Shenmue exists. Like, that was genuinely novel at a point to do that. There aren't a lot of games I feel like I've executed it particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
This one included, but there is an appeal to that, right?
Yeah. And getting experimental and using the form of this kind of RPG to do something that is not battle focused, right?
Yeah. Except, and then it falls down because you do a lot of battles.
You do a lot of battles,
and the things you do other than battles are just FedExing. Like, you're just walking back and forth.
Yeah.
That is the shitty part. But in terms of concept, it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So it's morning. Your wife gives you your meal for the day, which is an actual item you can use. That's a really nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to work at the weapon shop, and you can quit this whenever you like. But you can spend the whole day buying and selling weapons.
Yes.
There's nothing to this.
That's
it's not
thing.
reciteer or whatever. It's not a simulation of being a shopkeeper.
Yeah.
It's being a retail worker who just says yes or no to things.
People will come in and ask, is this the weapon shop? And you'll say yes. And then they will like propose the deal. They've got something to sell you, or they've got something that they want to buy. And they name the price, and you say, your terms are agreeable to me. And then either they have the money for it or they don't. Sometimes they'll be like, they will pull on you what you sometimes pull on shopkeepers in this game, which is, I don't have enough room, or no, I don't have money for that. Then they go away, and it's a missed sale. The problem is nobody will come in and try and like screw you over. You're not paying attention to the number that they're saying and comparing that to what a holy dagger costs. Right.
Yes. The cost in this, that is the Vorpal flaw to this, is that the costs in this chapter are incredibly arbitrary. Down to the end, when you start making big bucks, it's kind of exciting because you're making big bucks, but people are just paying stupid amounts of money for broadswords for no real reason.
You're taking advantage of shortages in two opposite kingdoms.
Yes, and that as a choice on its own is kind of interesting. In practice, just walking back and forth and doing it through menus is not very interesting. There should have been encounters here. What if the shop got robbed? What if this is not a fair comparison because it's a way later game, but I think about when you're hired to do security in Fallout New Vegas. For the RNG merchants, and like your whole job is just to pat people down, and they give you a list of rules, but people do try to fuck with you. It does things. This just doesn't do a thing. The mere fact that it's doing it at all is the thing, but it's the longest chapter so far. Like each chapter is longer than the last, and the actual like moment to moment engagement is nil.
While we're talking about a game that is using this kind of form to do commerce, I want to make a recommendation to you, or at least the listener. The game Sorry We're Open is really cool.
Okay.
It is RPG Maker,
the Manslayer.
Yes. It's an RPG Maker horror game where you are acting as a clerk in a dying department store.
Okay.
And like each night, each day you work a shift out at the front with like these particular kind of encounters, right? Where you are making choices and trade-offs and whatever. And each night you're like exploring in the back hallways and finding lots of weird stuff. It is real short. It is very inexpensive, and it is real cool. Sorry, We're Open. Yeah, I streamed it. It's super neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do with this concept, and this is, I'm not holding this as a standard of later games. It's frustrating that the execution isn't better.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. The fact that it is presented so straight, right? And you can just do this,
you
getting
can
your
just do
seed
it.
money.
And it's also, again, just to be a parody of myself, there were games that were playing with this kind of economy stuff on
Yeah, yeah.
PC. You
I
know,
mean, it was a
like
huge deal of dungeon crawlers, even
yeah.
just going in dungeon ecology kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, and then like Starflight 2 is all about
Yep.
trading and becoming a trader and becoming a merchant and stuff. Like there
Mhm.
are executions of this that are not graded on the console curve that
Yeah.
are more successful, that were contemporaneous or even
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah.
So the innkeeper, actually, this innkeeper says, "Hey, listen, there's this steel strong box to the north. If you get this, you won't lose half your money when you die." In Dragon Quest, one of the ways that it is like friendlier, more approachable than other games like Blobbers, is that when you die, you keep your experience and everything. You just lose half your money.
Mhm.
This will stop that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important for Torneko because he is not a very good fighter.
Yeah.
So as you're going out and using his steel ability to try and get cool stuff, you don't want to be knocked out and then suddenly lose half your progress. There are no banks.
Yes. Yeah. He is a dog shit fighter.
Yeah.
So you go to the Cave of Safekeeping, where they keep the strong box. There are a couple different tricks. The first, there's rooms are full of water that you'll kind of open up, and the water will flow
Mhm.
to move around past these gaps you have to get by. And then finally, there's a boulder that you have to lead around in the right way. It kind of chases you,
Yeah.
like Indiana Jones. So it bridges this gap to get to the lowest floor.
Right.
Yeah.
When you get to the treasure room, you lift the strongbox up, and it is an Indiana Jones thing. The pressure plate is activated, and you are locked in. What you have to do is put it back, go out, and push a boulder in, like push a rock in, so that you can take the lockbox off, and then put the put the boulder on in its place, right?
Yeah.
And go with it.
Not a great puzzle, but cool that it's a puzzle at all.
Yes.
Yeah. So we go to this town south of Lacanaba, the hamlet Ballymoral here.
Yeah.
We head there, and as we're heading there, we're trapped on this repeating path once we approach.
Yeah. We're locked into an enchantment, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're in Lost Woods.
Yeah.
The town just recently popped up, and the people here are clearly enthralled by magical foxes that have taken human form.
Yeah.
Including this traveling architect named Archie Otect. That's humor, baby. That's what the legendarily funny Dragon Quest games.
My dentist named Crentist. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe that's why he became that's why he became an architect.
Yeah. So you just have to go to the mayor and rest, and then you'll wake up outside.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to come back because Archie Otect is a load bearing character for this chapter.
Yes.
The kingdom of Ballymoral itself is in a real bad way. There's this rise of monsters outside of town that has completely depleted the armor supply as they try and fight them. Also, the bridge to Endor is out. And there's only one contractor in the entire kingdom of Ballymoral, Archie Otect.
Yeah, because he can fix it. So the king wants this bridge fixed because he wants to invade Endor.
Yeah.
What a dick. Someone named Finnegan is locked up in the dungeon. Down here we go talk to him. He asks for a chimera wing so he can return home to Lacanaba. Busting people out of prison is praxis. So we do so. And we go talk to him. We're back home in Lacanaba, and he offers you his dog as payment. Very bleak.
Temporary access to his dog as payment.
I know. Yeah. So this is Fido, and Fido can hunt and catch foxes.
Yes.
We happen to know a whole village made of foxes.
Yeah. So we go to the town, and he runs to meet the mayor, and this makes the village fade and disappear. Right? Like, Tay, will you let me go if I give you this really nice, I think it's a sword or whatever. Like, fine, whatever. Go.
we negotiate with terrorists in the Dragon Quest games.
Yes.
Like, I know I've been impersonating the princess and everything, but if you have this key, and I promise not to do it again, it's all the honor system.
Yeah.
So the village disappears. We take Fido back to Finnegan, and Archie Otect can now repair the bridge.
Yeah.
Does so. The prince, Regan, asked to meet you behind the weapon shop after dark. He wants you to take a letter to Princess Veronica of Endor. This is that romance we alluded to last chapter.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we cross and we read Reagan's letter to Veronica, or Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie Reagan.
Yep. He wrote this, like, hey, I want to give you a heads up. My dad's going to invade you. So you should probably be concerned about that. And the king overhears, because the throne, his throne is right next to hers. And he says, like, hey, can you take this letter back to Ballymoral? So now you're acting as kind of a courier.
Yes. It's worth like describing this stuff. These games always come off better in description to me than
Yes.
play. Like, this is all cool stuff, right? Like it is neat that we're being involved in this politics, even if it is like very quaint, and for the time and everything. It just, while
Yeah.
you're doing this, you're just walking back and forth fighting.
Yes.
It's a bummer what you're actually doing, even if the short form description of it is neat.
Yeah.
Like, I like this on paper.
Yes.
As a reward, the King of Endor promises you to give you permission, not the money, but the permission to buy a shop in town, which is what you always want to do. There's an old man in town. We can talk to him. He wants to sell his shop and retire, but he wants like 60,000 gold or something like that. I can't remember if that's one of them. 60,000, big price tags.
No, it's 35,000 to buy the shop.
Okay, 60,000 for the tunnel.
Yes.
To fund the tunnel. There's a rich collector who wants to buy this legendary goddess statue that's in a cave nearby. So we can hire these mercenaries named Laurel and Hardy to go get it if you'd like to. They are AI controlled. I did not find them that useful. I did hire them, but I kind of wish that I hadn't.
A little bit.
Yeah, it was fine. I would have rather just kind of, like, if I had ground for a little bit,
It's kind of like having spirit summons in Elden Ring. Like, they're just kind of there to draw heat. Like, okay, there's a greater chance that they're going to hit, not me.
Yes.
So yeah, we didn't say what was in that letter to Ballymoral before we went trying to close out the chapter. What it was, the King of Endor wrote this letter. Says, like, hey, I know that our kids are they're in love with each other, so why don't they get married?
Yeah, we'll be joining the kingdom.
Yeah, and this makes the invasion redundant because whatever, succession, etc.
Yeah.
So you avert the war. Yeah. Then you get permission to get the shop. Now you need the money.
Yes. Yeah. A little silly that the king didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But it is
Crusader Kings. Come on.
Yeah. Exactly. Game of Thrones. Like, it happens all the time. This very specific thing.
Earth.
So yeah, Earth, history, source, time. We go there. It's the Cistern Chapel, which sounds a little bit like Sistine. That's the joke. This is a 3-level dungeon where you have to flood the bottom level and ride a raft to get to the end.
Right.
With your people. Yeah.
No boss here. There's no boss in this entire chapter. We just get to the bottom and we find this silver goddess statue that we can sell to this collector in town, getting most of the money for the shop. Right.
Yep.
And when you buy it, Torneca's family moves in with them.
Yeah. Sweet. And she'll keep making you lunch.
Yeah.
So you buy the shop.
You buy the shop, and Tessie will help you run it. Tessie, your wife. And now we are in, making money mode.
Yes. We had to make that 60,000 for the tunnel to invest.
Yeah.
The king will give us a lot of money, though. He places an order for 6 steel broadswords, 6 suits of iron armor. The way we do this is we find, buy, and sell weapons and armor until we make enough money to buy all these.
Right.
A good way to do this, because people, you can, there are things that have higher turnover, to buy higher value items. Here you can also, there's a guy in the town who will buy things from you, and you can bargain with them, which is not communicated by the game, but I read this online. He'll say, like, you're like, hey, I got this for sale, this iron sword or whatever. He'll offer you money, and you can just say no, and he just offers you more.
Oh yeah.
And you can just say no, and he just offers you more. There's a way to make this a little bit less tedious, but it is still pretty tedious.
Yeah.
To do this. And then check in with your wife to see whether she's made the money for the day.
Right.
Until you can get the lump sum needed.
Yeah. And what you're saving up for, there's a guy in a cave nearby who has started this excavation. The channel's pretty apt on that. Yeah. Just trying to connect these two continents to open up a trade route. that doesn't require going at sea. You can invest in this. You need to make 60,000 gold in order to finish out this quest, finish out this chapter. And when you do, you can walk through to this nearby port city, and you're going to abandon your family again, and you're going out in search of the most legendary weapon, so you can be the most legendary arms dealer.
Yeah. Can I find the equivalent of a nuke and bring this kingdom to ashes?
Yeah.
So that is the end of the chapter. This is the marquee thing in this game. I think this is the big thing everyone points to.
Yeah.
And it is neat. Like, I don't want to take that away from anybody or take it away from the game, right? Like,
no,
it's pretty cool to have a character who is not meant for martial pursuits engage in this. If I were going to like fix it, other than making the economic stuff simmy, I would tie all the battles into that and just say you hire bodyguards and you don't see the battles.
Yeah.
You just do it as a resource thing. Like, you get to the new location, you travel overland, and you have lost a certain number of like caravan guards or whatever and have to rehire them. Work it into the economy. There's really no reason why Turneko should ever pick up a sword.
Yeah. Or an abacus halberd or whatever he has.
Yeah. I can't remember what his, you know what I mean? Like,
Estrella's abacus. Yeah.
It's silly for him to fight.
Yes. Do you want to call it here?
Yeah. That'll actually split things pretty well because we're moving at a good clip.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be it for this episode.
Yeah. We got 2 more chapters left. One of which is another short intro chapter, and then we have the chapter 5, which is the big one with the hero. But since we think it'll probably be about the same length, since the generalities take a while in this. But the game in this form, describing it, does move at a pretty steady clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Just a little reminder, after this, not Cruelty Squad, Lisa the Painful, for reasons at the beginning of the episode. If you have things to say about Dragon Quest IV, please write in. Or if you have things to say about Mystical Ninja 64 or Lisa the Painful, write in at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yes. Do that by August the 15th. If you have things to say about September's games, go to duckfeed.tv/contact by September the 15th. And those games are Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, the Pokemon trading card game for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. And our premium episode there is Doom Eternal. And Lisa is the premium episode for this month.
Yeah, aka Banger Month is what we like to call that. You can also leave us ratings reviews on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, things like that. Support us by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. $5 a month gets you those premium episodes. If you are a non-straight, non-white, non-cis, non-male creator and you'd like us to shout out your project, please send me an email at Gary@Duckfeed.tv. You can be any of those things. You don't have to be all of them. There's no need to prove your bona fides.
Right.
People do that. And I feel like sometimes people feel a little self-conscious about it. Like, oh, I'm I hate the idea of oppressed peoples as a competition. Like it's a thing people get into really easily. And we should if you don't have my privilege, if you don't have me and Cole's privilege,
if you are not demographically identical to the two of us,
yes, we'd love to help you out if we can by highlighting your project. So, and this can be anything. We've had I'm pretty happy with how this has gone. We've had a lot of a real nice variety. I just recently got that monster bestiary.
I forget if I ordered a physical one. Maybe the physical one's on its way. Ooh.
Yeah, I got that. Came with some really cool stickers and stuff from Dai Sugars, who kicked out the Monster Overhaul book. You can find that. At some point, maybe for a dispatch, we'll do like a roundup of the stuff that we know. They've done this and talk about this project a little bit. I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but I'm happy to do it. At the very least, I get to learn about new stuff. And a couple of people have reached out and been like, "Oh, I learned about this from that. That's really cool."
Nice.
That's about the best we can hope for. I don't want to overstate our power. I just,
No, it's good. Good results are good results.
Yeah. Don't want to pull the ladder up under us if we can. We're immensely lucky,
Yes.
And I am a very sensitive man, but I also don't receive even, a fraction of, I have a lot of privilege, I guess.
Yes.
That's my point. So send me an email. We don't have the line's real short right now. So nothing to announce this week, but send us a thing. Last little bit I want to say about that as a reminder. I say this a lot, but it's because it's important. Include pronouns, include pronunciation, and please don't submit anything on behalf of someone else.
Yes.
I don't want to blow up anyone's spot unless they're comfortable with it. If you know somebody who this applies to and it doesn't apply to you, just let them know and they can reach out if they're interested. I understand that can be intimidating for some people, but I don't want to take that choice away from anybody.
Yeah.
That feels hinky. Don't want to do it. Yeah. What else?
Gwen. Huge thanks to our producer, Gwen.
Yeah. Thank you, Gwen. A couple of fun episodes to put music into.
Yeah. I mean, real good soundtrack run we've been on.
Yeah. It's nice. So big thanks to Gwen, our producer who does great work.
I think that's about everything.
Yeah.
I would say next time, watch out for that manslayer. Oh,
Yeah.
here he comes.
He's a manslayer.